All right, what is up, guys? Welcome for another episode of the Group Up Podcast. We are here for the great DPS debate. As you can see, surrounding me, the bright and colorful stars, and then Craggy's minimalist. I appreciate that. I appreciate the minimalist background compared to the
Asylum.
bright. Exactly.
Asylum.
That's what it feels like, I guess, for him playing DPS right now. But this is what we got: the colorful cast, ready to discuss the whole roster, the whole role for you guys. We've had the tank debate. We've had the support debate, so now we're going to round it out. Let me introduce my guest, and then we'll talk about what we're going to be discussing today. So let's go with Kragie in the bottom right. He's here to talk about his favorite role, the Flex God himself. How you doing, Kragie?
Hello, I'm doing good. Thank you for having me on.
Delighted to have you on. Kragie sent me a DM. He was like, "Yo, SCB, we gotta get on this DPS podcast, man. I gotta get my thoughts out." So here we go. We're gonna get some spicy takes, I hope. In the top right, the man of the moment, the much ballyhooed hero, Sombra, has been reworked finally after much promising. So we have the expert Fitzy here. Fitzy, tell me what's up.
You know, I got 100 games on her so far, so still figuring it out. But yeah, she's I don't know yet. I don't know yet. She's just kind of on the some games she feels busted, other games you can't do anything. So I think a lot of that has to do with Kiriko though. So
Oh boy,
shall see.
We'll have a lengthy chat about that one and that whole interaction. But let me introduce first, in the top left, with the flag proudly bared in the background, it is Deku. Deku, what's up?
Yo, thanks for having me. Thanks for inviting me. I'm excited to be here. And yeah.
As always, the Hitscan propaganda will come. We had Salt on spreading his hog propaganda. Deku has been a little bit converted, despite her expertise in Hitscan. We'll see what she has to say. And
That's some widow propaganda.
Widow propaganda. I mean, I will preface right off the bat that Deku's favorite map is Havana, so be careful of what opinion she spreads here. All right, in the bottom left, rounding us off for our guest is the lovely Fareeha. Fareeha, how you doing?
Hey, I'm glad to be back. I swear every time I come on this podcast, I'm wearing less and less clothes. But my AC's broken, so can't blame me.
You know what? I don't think anyone will complain, honestly. I don't think anyone will complain. So thank you for bringing the sex appeal to the podcast. I appreciate that. We need some of that. Can't just be boring. We can't just be boring here. Okay, so I hope you guys are excited to discuss. I mean, we're only really going to talk about the DPS role today, but today has been an exciting day for Overwatch in general because it has been confirmed today that the Microsoft takeover is going through. So for everyone who is hopium that Microsoft will revive Overwatch, it's a great day. But also just for everyone, today we also know that Bobby Kotick will be leaving Activision Blizzard at the end of the year. So December 31st will be his last day in charge. So whatever your opinions are on Microsoft, whatever your opinions are on Overwatch, I think we can all agree this is a cause for celebration. But we'll discuss that more thoroughly in a different podcast, probably next week. We're here to talk about the DPS role. So guys, I want to go around first just to start with. I want to get your opening thoughts on just the role as a whole. How does it feel? Strong, underpowered, weakest of the three roles, strongest of the three roles? This is your chance to get the therapy session out. I'm going to start with Kragie. Kragie, what are you feeling?
Yeah, so I think it is by far the weakest role. I feel like the purpose of DPS, when you're not looking at niche situations like Widowmaker on Havana, for example, I feel like tank and support can do the same and more. So I feel like it's just kind of like there to be there to fill out the 5 players. If we had role queue or mainly only open queue, I mean, you wouldn't really see DPS characters being played that much. So that's my take on it.
Damn, you're starting us off hot and heavy, straight up. By far weakest role, fucking shit, plastic role. Fareeha's nodding in the bottom left. Fareeha, I'm curious if you agree with that take.
So I play all 3 roles, and the thing is, I've noticed that tank right now, it feels miserable, but you can still pop off sometimes. Support is what I queue for when I want to relax and still have a ton of value. But then DPS, it just feels like I have to play perfectly. There's so little room for mistake, unlike the other 2 in some ways. And I find myself agreeing with Kragie, even though I'm having a lot of fun playing DPS right now. Pharah and Sombra, they both feel real good. It's still rough in ways that I don't feel on the other 2 roles.
Interesting. So the
You're
conglomerate.
reliant.
Go ahead.
You're just so reliant on situations, and not just on your team, but you're reliant on like not being looked at or like having openings and things like that. And if someone decides to, if like the other team decides to pay a lot of attention to you and shut you down, there's less ways to circumvent that like you have in the other roles.
Interesting. So we're getting a very interesting picture here. The DPS players really feeling powerless a little bit. Deku, you are the Widowmaker player in Havana, so do you feel equally powerless, or do you feel like, I'm still carrying these games?
I'm gonna be real. I think DPS is pretty okay spot right now. I don't think it's underpowered or overpowered. I feel like you can easily just counter swap for like the enemy tank, whatever you need. The only thing I do feel like it's underpowered is like, let's say you're playing DPS and you're trying to 1v1 a support, then it's just miserable because you know, support is overpowered and busted. But other than that, I think DPS is fine. Like I went 5-0 on my card today and I was like, oh, this is easy, you know? So that's my opinion. It's okay.
Interesting, interesting. So you're having a good time. That's nice. So somebody is. Fitzy. Now, of course, your perhaps perspective will be unique here because you've just had your favorite hero changed in a drastic way. But how do you feel about the DPS category in general?
You know, going off what Kragie said about the whole, if there was not a role queue, would DPS get picked? And I think the answer is no. Like you said, like kind of like the goats where it was like you just go 3 support, 3 tanks. And that's just because they either have a ton of HP or they have abilities that give them more HP. So, you know. But on my take on DPS overall, yeah, I mean going on Deku's of trying to 1v1 supports is you have to like, okay, I have to engage after they've used a cooldown while I have all of my cooldowns. It's not like, oh, okay, we both used a cooldown, we can kind of have an even fight. It's like you can't 1v1 them very easily. And then if you do, a lot of times the other support comes in and saves them or whatever. But yeah, I think the DPS is not terribly bad. I mean, you could still get picks and you could still do stuff, but I think we can kind of all agree support is kind of in the busted DPS with healing heroes.
Interesting, interesting. A barcode pops in the chat to say DPS bad, please buff. So I think this sentiment across DPS players is largely that you guys feel powerless. It's interesting that you guys are echoing a lot of the things that were said in the tank debate. You know, the tank players as well were like, listen, man, I try to do anything. The support cooldowns negate me. In the support debate, a lot of the supports were like, hey, look, I think you're generalizing. You know, not all the supports have powerful cooldowns. Maybe a few of them do. And we agree that those guys should get looked at. But, you know, it's not all the supports, just maybe a couple broken supports. But I'm interested in exploring this idea first, that you guys feel like if we went back to open queue somehow, like there's no real reason to pick DPS, and supports are almost better duelists. So I want to go to Kragie again. Kragie, do you feel like this is like a bigger picture problem beyond just balance? Like it's like a design approach where you as DPS don't really have a thing that you're the best at?
Yeah, but I think that comes down to balancing. I think, for example, we had before role queue was a thing, we had dive. Slightly, Sumito made a video about this. Before goats, quad tank and 2 supports became a thing. So it's just tanks has always been very strong. And the thing is that they have a lot of damage. I think it's because maybe the devs are thinking that if we just make a ton of Reinhardt designed characters and Winston, that doesn't really do a lot of damage, but creates a lot of space, we won't have a lot of people actually play tank. But yeah, right now, I mean, I've been queuing all 3 roles, been playing a lot of tank recently, and it's like I just pick Zarya, like hold W with 100 charge and a bubble, and I'll at least kill 1 person almost every time. Also, about the support is that support does have the best abilities in the game by far. They have Susu, they have Lamp, they have Life Weaver has like 17 different abilities that can like save the teammates. And if we talk about like flankers, for example, so for example, Tracer's whole kit is being good at 1v1s, but like half the support roster will just destroy Tracer in a 1v1 mostly. Like every time I try and flank as Tracer, I just have an Ilari standing next to our pylon. She body shots me once, and I just have to run away. So
you said this was. Go ahead. Finish your thought.
But the way that I see DPS role now, after the Bastion buffs, I do feel like you can get a little bit more value with DPS role, but I feel like it's in the wrong way. Because right now I feel like you get value in the DPS role by taking away the value of the enemy tank. So by going like Bastion, Mei, Symmetra, and just like suck out all the fun from the tank. And that's the best way to get value, I feel like. Which is kind of boring for both parties.
Interesting. I'll come back to what I was gonna ask you then. I want to actually take it to Deku first then, because you alluded to this, Deku, that actually, like, you know, there's a lot of power if you just counterpick the enemy tank. Is that the role of DPS now? Just like make the tank miserable?
Yeah, I'm gonna be real. Like, as soon as I see Winston, I'm going to spawn and going Bastion. I don't care. I'm winning that game. You know what I'm saying? It's pretty bad. Like, you just counter swap the tank all the time, and they can't do anything about it. Really, it becomes really, really hard for the team. So if your tank is getting gapped, you just do what you can to, you know, mess up their tank, and you're good. Honestly.
And are you happy with that as your job?
No, I don't like playing Bastion at all. I think it's boring, but, you know, now with the Sombra changes, playing Widow into Sombra is a little annoying, so.
Annoying! Woo!
Annoying.
That's Fitzy's like trigger word, like he's ready with that radar. But so okay, so you're feeling like, okay, well you're gonna go Bastion because you're disincentivized from being Widow. Fitzy, the annoying bomb was dropped on you, but do you feel like your value is largely just making the tank miserable?
I mean, that's the heroes I play. So
you make everybody miserable.
Tank, you wall the tank, you freeze the tank. You know, that's what I have always done in my entire Overwatch career. You know, I would go Ana and flank the Reinhardt so you could sleep and shatter. I just didn't like the whole shooting shield thing. But I think right now it's just like the fact that if you try to go for any solo kills or go for any like all-in kills, boom, Suzu, boom, Lamp. But like you have to do these all-in plays and just hope that the enemy team doesn't stop you. And so that's just like you don't get to play well. Like you could play well, it just doesn't matter. And on the other end, yeah, like if they're not on the Kiriko, if they're not on the whatever, on Brig or whatever, where you can actually get the solo kills, it's okay. I mean, I generally try to not shoot the tank, but a lot of I'm trying to mess in between with Sombra mainly, of course. I mean, that's all I've played this patch so far. Aside the little mate was switching between like, okay, when do I flank? When do I just sit and soldier Sombra 76? Which honestly has a lot to do with how much mobility the enemy team has. So it's like, okay, if they have a Winston Sombra, you know, you kind of chill with your team, which is less dependent on supports. Anyways, I don't know what my main point is here, but do I bully the tank? Yes, I do. Do I counter swap to it? Not really. It's trying to just like figure out how to get value based around the tank and support, and where do I try to play to get value? Yeah, based on those three. But again, it's not like, oh, they have that DPS. How do I get value? Unless it's a Torb, at which point it's just like, oh, there's a buildable. There's an Iliari. There's one, a kill feed, which is like all buildables. It's like Torb turret, pylon, immortality field. It's like, okay, how many do we have to kill? But I do think Sombra's, with the virus being able to destroy the pylon, you can kind of just, because it's like what, a 12-second, 13-second cooldown or whatever. So you would know. Go back. I did play a lot of Iliari, but you like go back, you throw the virus, shoot it a little bit, translocate out, and then like you have that like 12-second window to get something done where their healing is a little less. So yeah, that's kind of the, not really trying to focus hard on countering the tank, but yeah, I think the optimal style, since if the supports are things like Kiriko, Baptiste, whatever, that's gonna counter your initiation or counter your all-in plays, whatever they are, then it's just safer to go for the tank and just win the tank war.
Right. And that's where I want to take it to Fareeha, because it sounds like what you guys are saying is that it's not that in a vacuum, if you could, you would always make the tank miserable. Like if you could, you might go duel the support or duel another DPS, but the problem is that it's impossible to duel the support, right? Like it's just not going to happen. And so you're kind of left with, well, what's the best thing I can do? Well, I guess I fuck with the tank, right? That's the best I can do, is like make his life miserable. So is it like a process of elimination that you're left to fight the tank?
I will fall asleep and fall over drooling if I have to shoot the tank every single game. I think I can't stand playing Bastion and I can't stand playing like immobile heroes just because it's like it's deathly boring to me to see like, oh, who can break the barrier first and kill through a million healing. I think it's so much more interesting for me to play heroes that flank and heroes that can exploit weaknesses and play instead of the macro of like hero swapping and all that kind of stuff, focus more on the micro of like, oh, they use this cooldown, or like, oh, my tank's going here, like let me make use of this space. And it's like trying to read situations instead of just like constantly being a slave to meta or being a slave to counter swapping and all that stuff, because it's like that just it's too boring for me. And so regarding the flanking stuff, like Fitzy mentioned, the new Sombra is really she's weird. She's sometimes really powerful and sometimes you can't do anything because I think what it is you have a smaller window to do stuff as the new Sombra, but also you're more explosive in that window. So it's like finding that perfect balance and like really being in the right place at the right time. But that's kind of how it feels. Like DPS can be really powerful, but it's that glass cannon aspect because there are so many deployables, right? So many turrets to break, so many things to chew through, and so many abilities to time out, and you have to be smarter than ever to like get value independently.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, it doesn't paint a very pretty picture. Kragie, I want to take it back to you now because what I was going to ask you is you said it's like this is a balance issue. So, like, when you say this is a balance issue, where do you think the problem lies? Like, what would you address?
I would start handing out hefty nerfs to a lot of characters. I think we've gotten to a point now. I think from moving from Overwatch 1 to Overwatch 2, I think the overall tank role got a buff. The overall DPS role got a nerf, I believe, and support got a buff. I feel like we need to start bringing numbers down so it doesn't seem like you're fighting a power creep all the time. Like I said, mentioned before, if you play Tracer, even though it is a 150 HP target, when you get body shot once by Laurie's massive beam, you have to run. You can't fight that. So yeah, I'd start bringing down numbers so they're more reasonable. Yeah.
Numbers on supports, on like healing, on everything?
Yeah. I would nerf tanks damage overall. I would nerf some DPS characters damage, like Bastion does a little too much damage. And I would nerf, and once you nerf down overall damage, then you will have to nerf healing because then healing will be too strong.
Right, because I'm just trying to like get a cohesive picture for the Kragie patch here. So it's like you feel like if we lower the damage and then we lower the healing, then like what does that change? Like what does it make room for?
I think it makes room for more play potential and setting up, because right now, like the moment you peek a corner, you're dead to Hanzo arrow. You're dead to like a Ilari headshot, a Kiriko headshot. You're dead to like a Roadhog if he's like remotely close. And I know Salt would say just don't get close to him, but if he's on point, you have to contest point eventually. So, but yeah, I'd probably nerf like a lot of damage, yeah, and then because of that, you'd have to nerf healing. So,
Right,
I think that will open up for more like play potential and like not have to worry about peaking at all, pretty much.
Right, so it's like that burst damage, the one shots that kind of stifle you from actually being able to do like make plays, right? It's like the threat of like I'm just gonna die in a split second is stopping you from trying to do something. Is that fair?
Yeah.
Okay, well, as a one shot lover, Deku, I'm
Yes.
coming to you on this one. I mean, I will say personally, the 2 games where Hanzo was disabled in comp was the most blissful time I've ever known.
It was
But
such a good time.
I didn't play yesterday, so I didn't
I will
get
look
to
back
know.
fondly on that day. But do you feel like then it's like this is a solution then? It's like we gotta look at the one shots. I mean, obviously you represent not just yourself, but also Unsalted Salt here, who would be very angry, I'm sure, if you took away the hog one shot.
I'm into one shots as long as they're skill shots. You know what I'm saying? As long as it's like a skillful shot, I think one shots are fine. I personally think immortalities and cleanses and stuff like that need to, be toned down a bit, because like there's so much healing and then bam, a cleanse after that, bam, an immortality after that, bam, another cleanse, and you just can't kill anything, it feels like sometimes, unless you just go Bastion. But
But you just one-shot him.
not all the time. It's like
Not all the
different
time, but it's
scenarios.
skillful.
I think
Yeah,
that's
but
why
like
Bastion is so strong, because he's got armor and can't get one shot.
I think mainly immortality and cleanses needs to be toned down a bit personally. I think the one shots aren't too bad right now. I don't feel like oppressed whenever I play on like any long sniper maps really. So far, like at least for the 6 hours I played today, I didn't really see too many snipers.
Mhm.
Did see a lot of Mei, did see some Sombra, um, a lot of Genji actually. So I don't know. I think one shots aren't that big a deal right now. TBH.
Well, start of season's always a little bit different because people are always willing to experiment, and I think in a week or two, everyone starts homogenizing to like what actually is the strongest thing. But it is
Sure.
interesting the point that Kragie brought up about, well, Bastion is actually immune to the one shots, right? Like I think especially last season, what we saw by the end a lot was Torb and Bastion, because not only can they output a lot of damage, but they also don't get burst down by something very easily. So it's like kind of like this weird cycle Overwatch always seems to have, where it's like things that both create the problem and solve the problem. So like Bastion and Torb create like a huge damage problem because they're just doing so much, but they also survive it, therefore making themselves the only answer. So I'm going to take it to Fitzy as another resident one-shot hater. Fitzy, is it like what causes this? Like what is the the chain of events? Where does it begin? Does it begin with the immortalities that Deku's talking about, or does it begin with the burst potential?
Let me first start off with saying I have no problem with Widow. Like, yeah, there's sometimes where it's Havana. It's more like they have double sniper. It's usually
Right.
like if they just have the Widow, I'm like, all right, fine. Now, Sombra's a lot easier dealing with Widow now, and also is a lot better at dealing with Hanzo. So I'm okay on that regard right now. I'm not gonna I'm not gonna blame those heroes. But if we're talking about what causes the problem, I mean, it ends up being like you said. I think that Torb can't get one shot by, what does he have, 250 health, so he can't get one shot by Hanzo. Mei can't get one shot by Hanzo now because they reduce his damage to what, 245 or 240 or whatever it is. And then Bastion can he get headshot in turret form? Like, it's hard to shoot him,
It's
get a
behind him.
headshot
From the back,
yeah
yeah.
yeah so it's hard to headshot him, and he's tankier in the tank form, so it's like Kiriko can't headshot, who's a common pick right now. So you're lowering her value. So in my opinion, I think it's like, oh, you're reducing all of the headshots, all of the damage. They have armor. Torb has armor. Bastion has armor. That you're essentially kind of being tankier. And as much as Mei is being picked, it's more of like the ice wall is like you can zone off somebody, but then also the Kiriko can't headshot the wall, and Kiriko can't headshot the Torbjorn turret, so you're lowering all of her damage output, because that's a lot of what she's doing. So I think it stems from decreasing a lot of the high damage from the supports, is that you can survive long enough to contest the supports and contest the tank. Yeah, if we're talking about like Torb and Bastion being in and Mei being in tankier, I don't know how much Reaper's being played, but he can't shoot from afar, so, and he all ends on anyone, Kiriko is gonna Suzu anyway, so yeah, I think that's where it stems from still, is the high damage from supports. My take on, I know we're talking about DPS and stuff and whatever, and you asked what does DPS have the advantage on or whatever, is like, exactly what do you, my whole thing on the supports is they should not have a potential to kill from afar, survivability, mobility, and healing. And Kiriko just has like, she can two-shot you, she can escape, she can save somebody else, she could save herself a second time, she has wall climb, she, like, her hitbox is super skinny. Like, there's all these things that's like, should a support have all of those? And that's where it's like, okay, Zen, you can kill, low mobility, high damage, but he doesn't have the mobility, he doesn't have the save somebody unless you use your ultimate, which is okay, Transcendence, saving someone, whatever. And even then is like, oh, you have the anti-nade to counter the Transcendence or whatever, if you really want to make a play. But you literally do anything, it's like, oh, Suzu, okay, that cleansed any ultimate, any all-in that you win for. you know, even the EMP, you have 1.5 seconds. It's like, oh, okay, cleanse, whatever. And now there's obviously Zarya has been seeing a lot of play recently. She can also cleanse whoever gets jumped on, and then the support can counter whatever else. So yeah, it's a lot of the supports, in my opinion, being very good at too many things. You know,
Right.
obviously we can look way back to Overwatch 1 beginning. You know, it was like Mercy, Lucio, Zen. If we're talking the very beginning.
Right.
Zen was the glass cannon. Lucio had the speed but low damage. Mercy had the no damage but, you know, healing and mobility. So
you know what, we'll come back to that because I think Kragie will probably chime in on that as well, because you mentioned Samito's video, which I think we can touch on in regards to DPS. So we'll come to Kragie on that specific talk about how the supports have evolved. But I want to take it to Fareeha first about just this concept of like, well, what is the DPS for, and where does these problems come from, where you guys are all saying like, well, maybe Deku feels like we're fine, but the rest of you feel like, yeah, the powerlessness. So like, where does it stem for? And is it as Fitzy said, like, oh well, it's just because supports are doing a little bit too much?
See, it's because Deku's willing to play Bastion.
True.
I'm willing.
Okay, I have a lot of thoughts. I think that it's a vicious cycle, and that it's probably started before this too. But like immortality and cleanses, so like Zarya bubbles, Suzu, lamp, any kind of big burst healing, it makes one shots really really valuable, because you can't bubble someone halfway through like being killed if they're just, you know, dead on impact, right? If they get Hanzo headshot, if they get railed by Sojourn. But the thing is, the emphasis on one shots gets the one shots nerfed, and then that makes it so that there's this emphasis on, as Fitzy said, tankiness and strength in heroes like Bastion, like Mei, like Torb, who both output a ton of damage but also tank. And that's where I think a big issue is because when you think of the purpose and the strength of each role, what do they all do, right? So a tank enforces this like zone of control, this circle of space that moves with him. If you have a Roadhog and he hasn't used his hook, right, there is a circle around him and a line of sight that you need to be extremely cognizant of, or else you will just feed and die. And that's the same for Reinhardt, for Winston in some degree, and also Zarya when she's like really, really charged. And what does a support do? Like, they help uphold that tank, they help bolster them and heal them through like all the shit coming their way. And okay, then what's the DPS's role? Is the DPS's role to help suppress the amount of space that a tank can play? Is it to help, you know, bolster a certain lane? Like, what is it? And when you think about it, the power of a DPS to like suppress in the space that a tank holds is mirrored by the supports, right? The amount of suppressing fire, the amount of damage that an Iliadi alone can put out makes you like leave the corner and back away. And it's like, DPS can do that sometimes, but the fact that a support can do that while also having all these abilities is just, it's rough, man. So I think that's why DPS, either the ones that are really strong either can tank really really well, or they're the ones that, like Sombra, can have the freedom to flank and to kind of play their own game.
Hello guys, SEB here, and the Group Up podcast is back, and I'd like to take just 30 seconds of your time to talk to you about two quick things. Firstly, Patreon. If you enjoy the content, then please do consider supporting directly, because Patreon takes only about 10% of the money you give, where YouTube and Twitch take 40 and 50% respectively. So if you'd like to support the podcast, then that is the best way to do so. Secondly, if you're someone who enjoys video essays or detailed analysis of movies, TV, or anime, then please do check out my second channel, The Soak, where I'll be making videos about those kind of topics much more frequently, and where a lot of my attention will go beyond just Overwatch. It would mean the absolute world to me if you guys would check it out. But that's it for now. Let's head back to the discussion.
Yeah.
That is a really, really, so what's the word I'm looking for? Just succinct, apt, really great metaphor, I think. I've never really heard anyone describe it that way, but I think it's a great picture of this, like, it's almost this like militaristic picture of this tank sort of moving forward as the front line. They've got like a little circle that's like, okay, I'm trying to push everyone away from the circle. And then you think of like the support as the supporting piece kind of walking behind and being like, you can go, you can go, you can go. And I suppose the original role of DPS was to kind of decapitate the foundation, right? It's like, all right, I want you to go and take out the support, and then the tank falls apart because support is gone. But again, what you guys are saying is, well, we can't decapitate the support, and on top of that, because when we all in, we die. But on top of that, the support is outputting enough damage from behind that we're also now scared. We're also now like, the best we can do is default to shooting the thing in front because we can't actually try something else. There's no other way around. So that's very interesting, and that's, I think, leads nicely to Kragie. You were kind of alluding to, Samito made a video about like how the support role has evolved and how, you know, like as Fitzy alluded to, we started off with a lot of like either single target healing in Mercy and Zenyatta. We're going to ignore Symmetra, the support. So we had like Mercy and Zenyatta healing, and then Lucio has AoE healing, but it's very weak, and it comes at the cost of him speeding. And then even when they introduce Ana, it's single target healing with a little bit of burst, but it all requires a skill shot, right? I guess the aim, you have to hit the shot. But then as we went along, support started to come along that they can kind of have a bigger impact, right? They can have mass AoE healing without requiring hits. And then we start having more powerful cooldowns, the immortalities, the Suzus, the life grip. So is that another problem again? Is that something you feel is affecting the DPS role that's stopping you?
Yeah, I'd definitely say so. So if we take that, so back in the day, in Dive when I used to play, I played the pro back then, and what really set a good support from a bad support, if you're a Lucio player, is that you're able to peel your support. So you actually got rewarded for being really good at the game, being able to duel the Tracer in 1v1, or at least like keep her occupied. And Zenyatta's got value for being able to hit their shots. And then what eventually happened is that the people that weren't good enough to do that got Brig. So they just started locking Brig, and then they won those duels automatically. So they no longer needed to be good at those duels. And then eventually they keep getting stronger and stronger and stronger. One thing that I did want to talk about is bullet sizes, something that a lot of people don't know is in the game. But certain characters have different bullet sizes. I would love to see them make all bullets the same size first, and then see if Hanzo one-shots is as big of a problem, if Ilari's left click is as big of a problem, Kiriko and all that kind of stuff. I would like to see that getting the same size as like Soldier, for example.
So you'd want even a Hanzo arrow to be the same size, just to be clear?
Yeah.
Even a Pharah rocket?
No, because Pharah has splash damage. Yeah, that's different, yeah.
Right, so like Pharah and Junk perhaps could have something different, and maybe the Zarya right click is different, but anything that's a singular, like, this is going to hit one target, you want it to be kind of like a bullet sized.
Yeah.
Right. Because obviously we brought this up in the support debate, because SK mentioned, but Illari's bullet is like a way bigger hit scan than any other hit scan.
Yeah. The worst one is Mercy's pistol. That one's the worst.
Right, but also then Kiriko's, which, I mean, obviously Mercy's pistol is perhaps not a frequently encountered threat, but the Kiriko kunai is bigger than the Hanzo log. So, so you feel like, so again, like just to try and be constructive in any way we can to the developers, like you feel like this would make it feel more fair for you dueling the supports as the DPS?
I feel like it would make it more fair, and I feel like if I die to a Hanzo headshot, I felt like that Hanzo then it's supposed to be rewarded for hitting a projectile and a headshot instead of just like missing the hit, but because the Hanzo is so big, it's still gonna hit. So I feel like it'll require more skill to hit these shots from the different characters, and in that case, then yeah, like I feel like they should be rewarded for being good at that character. Then yeah.
Right, so you feel like some of the frustration would go away because you don't feel cheated by this death that you had. Like, you're like, okay, that guy hit the shot, I don't mind.
Yeah.
Okay. Deku, as a Hanzo enjoyer, is that something you'd countenance? You'd be okay with that?
I'd be okay with it as long as it doesn't make it harder to hit Kiriko's head, because it's already impossible. You know what I'm saying? Kiriko's head hitbox is like, feels so tiny and hard to hit with the way she moves and everything. And kind of Illari too, because Illari's like the smallest character right now in the game, right? So I'd be okay with that if like it doesn't make it even harder to hit those two characters. I think it'd be fun.
do the hitboxes factor in at all? Because it's not something we often talk about, but do you feel like some of the new supports, dueling them is hard because their hitboxes are quite slender and finicky?
Yeah, and then on top of that, their movement is really like they got a lot of movement abilities now, so it's definitely harder to hit, and you have way less time to like say you're on Widow to charge up your shot and whatnot, and they could just cleanse, TP, climb a wall while throwing a kunai at the same time. So it's kind of hard
Don't
to duel any
forget,
kind
she's
of.
holding her hands out in front to block some shots.
Oh
Sometimes.
yeah, she's holding her papers like this, so you can't even headshot her sometimes. It's crazy. I feel like support has way too many crutch abilities. That one shots are necessary because of how many crutch abilities they have.
Right. Right. No, that totally makes sense, I think. So we're painting a bigger picture again of just like how all of this manifests, which is just that you're kind of left with one shots because you don't have anything else that actually works. Then in this domain, Fitzy, final thoughts then, because you kind of started a lot of this discussion as well. Yeah, do you feel like where's the answer, right? Where's the answer in your mind? Like what is the thing that will alleviate a lot of these problems?
Don't give supports every positive thing. Again, it just goes down to having the not to repeat exactly what I said, but the small hitbox, high damage, high mobility, escapability. It just
what would you rather see a support
everything,
be?
so.
Would you rather support be more like it was in Overwatch 1 originally?
I mean, just again having the different weights of value, being like you have the Zenyatta that's the glass cannon but can do a lot of damage, and then you have the Lucio that has the speed boost, but he doesn't do a ton of damage, but he can boop somebody. And then you have the Ana that's like low mobility but crowd control, but she can't teleport across the map. And then Suzu's, it's the having too many things. Like Ana's hitbox is a little small, right? But she's low mobility. Yeah, she can sleep you. Yeah, I mean, and Ana's still good, even with having no mobility or whatever. So I think like with Kiriko again, I'm just gonna keep digging into Kiriko, but it's just again, small hitbox, can two-shot you, can teleport, can Suzu. Like it's just too many. I don't know if they need to make. I don't think she wants to have lower healing. And I understand they wanted to be like, oh, here's like a DPS support, cool. Well, then she needs to like not have Suzu because she can kill you very easily. Or the Suzu needs to like just be a small Ananade that doesn't cleanse, or like, yeah, it's just too many tools in one kit. Yeah.
Can I add something?
You go for it. Absolutely. Feel free, any of you, to just chime in.
I think they should remove the support role passive. Just gonna throw that in there.
I was gonna talk about passive.
Do you want to elaborate on why, Deku?
There's already so much healing, and like supports in most games they will heal each other, but it's just way too much healing plus immortalities. Plus on top of that they get a support passive, so like you'll just have a wild support in the back line healing themselves somewhere without having to do anything, and you just can't do anything about it.
I was watching Fitzy's stream just before this, and he had hacked, virused, shot the Mercy. This was on Junkertown, and she went in for a res, he EMP'd, and the entire time she doesn't go below half HP. And this is not a dig on Mercy, this is just like the healing like is so insane that he hit all of this very bursty damage, used an ult, the rest of the team was focusing her too, or trying, and it's like she didn't even go below half. It's like okay.
Damn, that Mercy tanking. I saw Fitzy's face there, just like so miserable, reliving that in his mind.
No, I can't remember how she got it. It was just like every time it was like, just don't even try to engage, just wait to cancel the res. But I do want to talk about passives real quick. So supports constantly get value from their passive, right? Because essentially if you don't get shot for 2 seconds, cool, you're getting healed. Tanks take less crowd control, right? That's their passive, is like they don't, so they're constantly getting value out of that. DPS, you only get value if you kill something and then you reload faster. Cool. So maybe that's something that like the passives, I know that especially more with Sombra, in Overwatch 1, like when Overwatch 2 was out, I was like, oh gosh, how are you ever going to get an opportunity to kill somebody? Because the whole thing was like, if you killed one support, all right, that other support has to use their abilities to heal themselves. So you have that opportunity to go in. Either they had to use it for themselves, or they're like, oh, they're at like 75% HP. So you're like, there's my weak target. I can go in and finish them because they don't have their ability, or they're gonna have to use it on themselves. But now they're always 100%. Not only do you have like AoE healing, whatever, but like right now you go in, you like hit somebody, you get out, you come back, they're full HP, and like they didn't have to do anything. So yeah, I don't know if that's another reason why burst damage is so much stronger, because like you have to kill everyone from full HP. And I'm not, when I thought this passive, I was like, okay, it's gonna be like 5 seconds where it's like I'm imagining like you're on Numbani defense, you have an Ana and another support, and Ana doesn't want to nade herself all the time. And you're like, you're fighting, the other support dies, you're Ana, I'm at like half health, but no one's focusing me. You would eventually get healed. Like, okay, it's not a big deal. But to have the like, oh, it's 2 seconds and you're getting healed, like because someone had to reload and they didn't shoot you. Yeah, I don't know that that's something that I haven't been super excited about the whole time. Granted, again, I play Sombra, so I'm looking for those weak targets. But yeah, I think the support passive is something that I would be fine with going. I don't know if that means just completely get rid of all the passives. I know that was something that, and again, in the beginning of Overwatch 2, they're like, oh, the supports are so weak, they're dying all the time, blah, blah, blah. And like, their supports, like, that's how you win the fight. You're focusing the supports so you can win. So like, they're supposed to fall over so you can kill the team. So I don't know. That was definitely something that I was curious on when they were like, yeah, let's make them tankier, let's make them survive more. It's like, okay, but what's our point then? What's the point of DPS?
It takes away the nuance of like long range damage or like leftover damage.
Right. This is actually something because I've been on the anti-role passive train for a bit now, and I just kind of feel like they don't really. I feel like if there's something that a certain hero needs, so like I think often the argument for the role passives is that, well, someone like Ana's always the go-to. It's like, well, Ana needs this because you don't want to have to use nade for yourself, so we need this. But I feel like in these circumstances, like it's better to address the hero than give this role-wide passive that really helps some people, really doesn't help some people, and makes more problems for balance. And I was thinking this the other day. I'm curious as to the opinions of smarter minds than my own, but like I feel like either everyone should have the support passive or no one should have the support passive. Because like I think one of the problems is like when you're like a DPS and you go for like a flank, if you don't have a way to self-sustain, like chip damage removes you from that position, right? So I think Kragie was talking about this where it's like your tracer, if you take a little body shot, you just got to run all the way back, or you got to recall and you got to wait, right? And if you're, especially when you want to encourage flanking, right? That's what Overwatch 2 has been marketed as. We're like, oh, this is a game where you have lots of room to do whatever you want and take off angles, and there's not shields in your face, go do shit. But the problem is you're at an off angle, you take 50 damage from something, you're now in that situation because of one shot. You're like, well, at 150, if I peek this, I could just die, right? Like this guy over there could just actually one-shot me. And instead of being able to occupy the flank, you have to run all the way to the nearest health pack or to your supports, get healed, and come back. And I was just like, I think I was playing a DPS today, and I was like, man, I'm kind of like, I've been playing so much support. I was kind of waiting for the passive to kick in and just start healing me again. But like, I've just got to go run to a pack now, so I'm going to waste like 10 seconds of my time. So I wonder if it's like should everyone just heal out of combat so that we don't have to do this whole like thing, or should it just be do away with passes and keep the structure of Overwatch as supports heal, DPS kill, tanks, make space. So I'm curious if you guys' thoughts. Anyone want to chime in on that?
If supports can DPS so well, then DPS should support better too. No, it's like I don't know. I feel like that's an interesting idea, but it would work well if it was like a long timer, if it kicks in after like 5+ seconds. Who knows? But yeah. I'm just
mulling it over. I mean, Craig, how do you feel about the passive stuff? Like, do you think that it's valuable?
Actually, I don't really mind the passive. I don't mind if it stays. I don't mind if it goes. I do think that if it stays the support passive or any of the passives, I feel like DPS needs a new one. There's all talk about Mercy's passive not being good with the support passive, like it wasn't stacking in the beginning or something like that. And I'm just thinking, like what are all these Hanzo mains thinking about the DPS passive? I mean, it's not really like they can use it. So I do feel like it would be nice if we went back to like a movement speed passive, so DPS runs faster all the time. I think that would be nice to be able to go back to. But yeah, I don't really mind if it stays or if it doesn't. I feel like there's like pros and cons with both things. I feel like if we're talking about strictly support passive, I feel like the ability to like really like perfect your movement as like a Lucio player, for example, if you're 1v1ing that, like you go in like hide or like run around like a pillar, like that kind of stuff for like 2 seconds, and then you get that extra health that might be able to win that duel against the Tracer, for example. But also, if you get rid of the support passive, then I feel like it requires more skill to play support because you get value by actually caring about your second support, which is not something that a lot of supports care about these days. So that's like that extra level of like skill, which I like. So I can see the pros and cons for both.
Interesting. All right, Deku, anything to add?
I don't want a passive for DPS to move faster because then it makes me aim worse.
Right.
So I'm okay with not
Toggle it.
having
You can
that.
toggle it.
Oh yeah. Perfect. But yeah, I want that passive gone. Like, so if you're playing support and you're not pulling your other support and they die, that's on you. You know,
Yeah, that's your fault. Yeah.
that's your fault. Like, peel for your other support. It's so simple. You did it in Overwatch 1. Why can't you do it in Overwatch 2? You know?
If you're bad, die.
Yes.
Only in the context of Overwatch, yes, we must establish.
Of
But
course.
yes. No, I mean, okay, so that's very interesting then. So we've got a kind of a good range of opinions here on how it could be handled. Yeah, okay, so I just want to, like, before we get then diving into each of the individual DPS, I just kind of want to get like a picture of like, because again, I always try to be constructive, so I want to get like a clearer idea of what you guys would view as healthy. So like, what would you view as a more like healthy state for DPS to be in? Like, what would make you happier? Kragie, you're nodding. Does that mean you have an idea?
Yeah, I think the absolute best way to balance the game is by thinking of what would the meta be like if it was open queue, or would this character have a way too high pick rate if you switch it to a different role, for example, right? So if you put Ilari in DPS, pretty sure she would have like 100% pick rate. Like Zarya in DPS, she'd have a 100% pick rate as well, stuff like that, right? I feel like that's like a good philosophy to have when you balance the game. Because I feel like I know Blizzard used this this saying like a long time ago. It's like an ice cream shop that you have like 3 different flavors. So like this flavor is going to be the most popular, which will be DPS. Do you stack more up on it? Like, do you buy more of it so you can have the demand the supply of it, or supply the demand? I mean, or do you stack up equals amount and try and tell the other people that DPS is not the most attractive flavor? And I feel like that's kind of like what they're still trying to do now. They're trying to put DPS players into support and tank, instead of just being like, we know most people like DPS, let's make it as fair as possible and let people enjoy what they want to play.
Interesting. How do you feel about that ice cream analogy, Fitzy? And again, what do you feel is like the healthy approach for DPS to be?
I'm not gonna lie, I didn't get the ice cream analogy. I'm sorry. I missed the beginning.
Well, do you feel basically the idea being that like, well, there's 3 flavors, and do you cater to the supply and the demand, or do you try to like force people to pick each flavor equally?
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think we all kind of know why they reduced tanks from 2 to 1 was the queue times were atrocious. I mean, as much as they want to make a fresh game, and that was definitely something that they were thinking about when they did that. And I mean, I got insta queues on DPS right now, and that's because everyone's queuing support because they're like, oh, I'm just gonna go kill stuff. And granted, got a lot of new heroes, so we'll see. In terms of the whole Zarya going to DPS role, obviously you're gonna pick a 400 HP double bubble Zarya DPS, but so that comparison was a little iffy. But yeah, I think trying to make DPS DPS and make support supports. There's a reason why people liked to play those heroes. Personally, like I'm not a big Mercy player. I'm not a big Lucio player. Not a big Zen player. So beginning of Overwatch, I was like, yeah, support's not for me. But then Anna came out, and I was like, a little crowd control. I like that, but still get to heal, and still damage a little bit. But it wasn't necessarily oppressive. I don't think. I'm sure tank players would think otherwise in Beyblade, But yeah, that's how I feel about
So
the
so when
analogy.
you
What
say,
was your other question?
well, no, so you said, I was saying what would you feel is more healthy for DPS, but like, so you kind of felt like DPS should DPS, support should support. Do you want to just elaborate? Because obviously I know support players are saying, be like, what do you mean, Fitzy? Do you want us to heal bot? Like, what do you want?
So here's the, I guess we'll say the question, and I'll ask you guys, what should be the percentage? Should a DPS be able to 1v1 a support and have an advantage, meaning the win rate in a true 1v1 would be like 51 to 49. Should it be 51 to 49? Should it be 60-40? With no help, true 1v1, should it be favored to the DPS?
Depends on the hero and the playstyle.
I think Tracer should have the advantage over Zenyatta. For example, I don't
Someone
think.
should have the advantage. Yeah.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, like Soldier should not have the advantage over like an Ana 1v1, for example, because of anti-nade and stuff like that. I think it heavily depends. I think they should make it so, but that's the thing, is like with Tracer and Sombra, it's all about like isolating this one support and dueling this one support. So I feel like they should have the advantage in that scenario. But other characters, yeah, no, I don't think so.
Deku?
Because
Sorry, I just want to get Deku's thought as well.
Yeah.
I think yes, but just for like high risk, high reward characters that have to be in the backline. Other than that, like, yeah, Widow can one shot you across the map, but like that's just your positioning. It's not really a 1v1, right? So
You can
I think
1v1
that's
anybody.
Oh yeah. Yeah, just for like flankers and people have to be in the backline and are actually like risking it back there.
Right.
I can agree with that.
Fitz, you got hit with your own answer for your own question, which is it depends. So are you happy
That's
with
fine.
that answer?
I like that. I like that, and that's fine. But it's just like, you go to 1v1 a Kiriko, and it was this way forever. Like trying to 1v1 a Hanzo was like, okay, he's a sniper and I'm a flanker. Should I really be at like a 20% win rate against this hero? Now it's like 80% right now. But it feels more like, okay, they have to hit their shot. Okay, cool. That felt, whatever. I'm sure Widow players are a little more upset. But a lot of times they're not in a 1v1, so it's okay. But yeah, in terms of the isolating things, a lot of the new supports, like you just can't 1v1 them efficiently. Like I can assassinate a Zen now, like super fast. Lucio, if you get the hack, sure. Obviously, I'm talking Sombra. Anna, if she misses her sleep, and nade, sure, but like it's like a little lower risk until she sleeps you and then you're dead. But yeah, the risk reward is just okay. They got to break Kiriko. I can't kill either of them. Should a hero just completely negate another hero? Considering that they're like, oh, Overwatch 2, there's not any hard counters. And it's like, well,
In some ways,
I don't
there
know
are
about
still.
that.
I think that statement has to be that's factually untrue. So I think whatever said of that, the advertising, it's the opposite. So just want to say that's just not true. That whatever they advertise. But Kragie, you had something to say.
Yeah, I think we should go back to the times where teamwork was heavily rewarded. And I always bring up Dive because I think Dive was the best meta ever. I don't think Dive wasn't meta because there was one specific character that was just way too strong. It was just a lot of characters worked really well together. And like the whole like the backline synergy back then with Lucio Sen, like mad respect to all the really good Lucio players who were able to like take consistent 1v1s against Tracers and like protect their Zenyatta and all that kind of stuff. I kind of miss those days. Even like for example, like Masa, a really great support player. Like I always had trouble dueling him, and it was always like great fun trying to duel him. And there's always like I could always get better because he always got better, and I do kind of miss those days instead of just now is like, oh, let me pick Bastion and just like press shift and like press W and left click. It's a lot like focusing. It's a lot like a lot of the values just like shifted now because now it's more of like counter the tank instead of like how good are you on this specific character. Um, and it's like yeah.
Priya,
Can
you
I
wanted
chime
to
in
say
on that
something. Yeah,
point?
yeah.
Yeah, okay. So, as for my constructive thoughts on all of this and like the pain points of DPS, I want everyone to remember season 1 of Overwatch 2 and how Sojourn was incredibly dominant. She was dominant since the moment she came out on the beta. Even then, even with Sojourn being that powerful, the Zarya pick and the Kiriko pick were more important. And I think that's really, really telling because, like Kragie said, the focus of DPS has shifted instead of like your individual play and the pacing and like the fast movement areas of the game where it's like heavily centered on decision making, on like your own mechanical skills and your timing and everything like that. Instead of that being valued, instead it's like the big macro thing of like, hey, how much damage can you pour into that tank's face? And that's like, I don't know, to me it's objectively more boring. I think a lot of people feel that way. And I don't know, having more value on DPS in that lane of movement when that kind of space control is shared by the support and the tank. It's like give DPS something that they can excel in, especially heroes like Tracer, like Genji, Sombra, Pharah, who thrive on the flank, thrive on movement. It's like let them have more of that.
Very interesting. I like that take. Deku, do you have anything to add on sort of just before this last stop before we talk about the individual heroes? Just like the healthy state of DPS for you.
I think everything just goes back to support, you know? Right now it's just the strongest role. It's the easiest role. I don't even play support. I never played it in Overwatch 1. I started playing it like last season and I got top 500 in no time. And I was like, "Oh, why am I playing DPS when I can just play DPS 2?" You know what I'm saying? So, I think it all leads back to support, and once we start nerfing those, we can tune everything else down with it. So.
Right. And again, in terms of nerf, what kind of areas should be nerfed for the healer, for the support role?
Mainly, I think.
I almost made a boo boo there. I almost drew the ire of many a support player.
Mainly their survivability and immortalities, I think, and also the fact that they could just 1v1 DPS so easily and have all these escape tactics, immortalities on top of that is like you gotta like at least pick one to like tune down, you know?
Right. So tone down one of the, so again goes back to Fitzy's point. It's like they're kind of doing everything really well. Let's tone down some aspect of it. Okay.
Yeah, right.
Very interesting. All right. So we've kind of talked a lot about the macro elements, which again people will be like, well, you complain about supports a lot, you guys. This is the DPS podcast. Well, let's now talk about the DPS characters. So I think it makes sense to start with basically the pseudo new DPS, which is our Sombra. So I want to get the thoughts of Fitzy first, but Fareeha also plays a lot of Sombra, and I obviously want Kragie and Deku's thoughts too. So
Can I get
Fitzy
thoughts
raises.
of other people first?
Okay,
I'll
sure.
Go last.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll discuss Sombra then, and in that case, then let's take it to Fareeha, because Fareeha, you've been playing a fair amount of Sombra. So reworks. Firstly, are you happy, unhappy? Do you need more time to make your mind up? And kind of how does she feel?
I haven't quite gotten as many games in as Fitzy over here. But I think that new Sombra is interesting. There's a lot to figure out still. We're all still very much learning, and with learning comes growing pains. But I feel like, unlike with some other reworks, she isn't instantly valuable, which which is something interesting because you know how Brig on release and for a long, long time after that was instantly valuable. You could be mediocre, you could be worse than mediocre, and you could do a lot on that hero. And I feel like Sombra is very much so more glass cannony. She's a lot more active in your uptime and like your decision making, and you can do a lot more in the time that you have. Like I said earlier, like the windows are more explosive. So she has burst potential in a way that she didn't have before. She can do more on her own in the backline or off angling, and she can actually get the kills that she normally wouldn't have been able to. But she's also easier to find, she's easier to hunt down. So that limits the opportunities that you can kind of pick, because depending on what enemy teams are running and depending on what you're running, where you can operate grossly changes, right? And so I don't know, it's mixed,
It's
but I
mixed.
like it.
Okay, Deku, how have you felt about New Sombra? Have you seen much of it? Have you played much of it?
I've played against some people picking it on the enemy team, and I'm gonna be real, I'm okay with it. Like, I haven't had an issue dealing with it at all. I like, sure, if she's picking me off on Widow, I'll just swap, whatever. But I think she's fine now because she's like high risk, high reward, and you know, you actually have to like hit your shots and whatnot, and like not just, oh, I'm just gonna TP halfway across the map after doing some damage type deal. So I think it's fine to go against now because she can be punished way harder than before, which I like personally.
Nice. So Deku appreciates the punishing aspect. Kragie, do you like it?
Yeah, I might change my mind on this the more I play her or play against her, but I actually think the reworks are like really good. I feel like they made her more skillful while also not making her more annoying to play against. Because beforehand it was like,
what was that word?
Annoying, annoying, annoying.
more slimy to play against.
Oh yeah, that's
whereas
better. That's better. Slimy.
beforehand, she would put down the translocator on the health pack, run in, try and duel. She was like, "Oh, that didn't work. Let me try that again." Now it's like if you actually mess up, like you can't be chased down, especially by a tracer and stuff like that now. So I feel like she's a lot more high risk now, and they have given her a little bit more reward with the new virus if she actually like pulls it off. So I think it's a good rework.
Interesting. Me
Also, can I
personally,
squeeze
yeah,
in?
go ahead, Fareeha. Go ahead.
Sorry.
You go first.
Oh, just a small point. They did a really, really good job maintaining the hero fantasy with Sombra and like keeping her lore consistent. I go off about this way too often, but the fact that Hack was really annoying, but it was integral to her character because she's this person who's all about manipulating information and gathering information in places where she shouldn't be, right? That hacker persona. And the fact that Hack was potentially on the chopping block along with Translocator, it kind of threatened to change her into a like worse version of Soldier or like something different than who she is. And they really maintained her character really well. So I really like
No,
that
it's a
part.
very, very valid point. I'm sure a lot of the lore enjoyers will appreciate that,
Yeah.
as will they appreciate the fantastic video you made on this topic itself. So
Oh my god.
if you're interested on that whole idea further about how Overwatch explores the hero fantasy of their characters in the game design, go check out Fareeha's video on that topic. From my personal thoughts on the Sombra chain, so I think a couple things. I haven't played too much. I only played like a little bit in quick play and stuff. I think that they did a good job of making her feel more active. I think that's certainly that, you know, they said in their branding, they're like, we want to make her feel more active. I think that's true because I think it's a bit more frantic. You're a bit like constantly always trying to do something. You're like running, oh shit, translocate away, hack, come back, translocate away. It's just very much more frantic. In terms of like what I've played against her in comp, I've barely seen, I don't know if it's an EU diff or what, but I've barely seen any Sombra. And I think this also comes down to not many people played Sombra in the first place, so I don't see why they would be like, they're not going to start playing the difficult readjustment of a new version of the hero in comp. So I understand that. What I will add, and I don't know if Fitzy agrees or not, is that I do feel like there's a tactical element lost in the rework. I do feel like, again, my mentor was Fitzy on Sombra, so maybe I'm biased, but you know, the play style that I came to love for playing Sombra was really revolved around timing your engagement and kind of like the health pack playstyle still worked because you were kind of like manipulating what was happening on the battlefield a lot more, I feel like, because you had that safe escape, right? So you were able to kind of like put your translook in a certain spot and manipulate that fact to know you can be in a certain place at a certain time, and then like kind of then you can kind of push and pull the other players in the enemy team according to that situation, right? So it's like okay, well, I'm going to put this translocator here. I'm going to anticipating this fight's going to take place here. So I'm going to do this for 5 seconds. I'm going to hack this guy, threaten this guy, come back here. Now I'm in this part of the map. So I feel like that tactical element is lost a little bit in favor of a more frantic DPS playstyle, which I don't really have a skin in the game. So I'm not massively perturbed, but perhaps Fitzy, you have some feelings on the rework.
Oh, I have feeling no. I think they did a good job on the rework. And I did have the Q&A last Friday when you were doing your podcast last week. And one of the questions I asked was like, okay, let's say she's good or bad or whatever, something, would you do a revert of this? And they did say, these are the building blocks we want to work with. And so I think the building blocks are good. Yes, I agree. The whole translocator allowed you to set up those like, I'm 3 steps ahead and being ready to be in the right place at the right time and blah, blah, blah. She is more active. I think you have to play different play styles depending on how much mobility the enemy team has. The good news is you can still do flank styles sometimes, not all the times. Her spawn killing is insane. Because you can spawn kill anybody that's not a tank, aside from like Mei. Like you still can, it just takes longer. So yeah, being able to just like, oh, we killed a Hanzo, let me go spawn kill, and like have that threat that somebody has to come escort them. And it's still like a 50-50, you might die to the Hanzo, and Cassidy, same thing, where it's like, okay, you might die, whatever. But like Zenyatta, there's no chance he's getting back from spawn alone. Like it's just not possible. Which is good and bad. It's good because it's like, ooh, that's a threat. You're creating that immediate value. But also is like, should someone be able to do that easily? Granted, a lot of people have gone back to escort. Like they know I'm out there looking, and I don't know that I'm in like GM5 right now because last season and whatever. So I don't know if I'm kind of in this like, oh, that's the streamer, and like everyone's like worried about where's Sombra? They're focusing all of their attention, which is fine, but like I just don't know that that's going to happen as I start to climb. If I do, I don't know. I'm literally at like a 50-50 win rate right now. So you could be like, well, maybe it's fine because whatever, but I'm in GM5 and I don't want to whatever, but I'm not supposed to be in GM5. not to whatever. I could play Mei and just win every game. Not every game, but anyways. So I think the rework's good. I'm not sure on the ultimate nerf plus the ultimate, like the double ultimate nerf, because they were like, oh, we want to decrease how often you get this ult because it's a free win, but then they made it so it's not a free win, and it hasn't been a free win anyways. It's 1.5 seconds to kill somebody, which you like finish the EMP and throw a virus and someone Suzus it already, because by the time you're done with all the animations. So yeah, that I'm a little bit because she doesn't have any AoE damage. She doesn't have that like, oh, we're playing on what is that on Nepal where it's like Genji dashes and he gets a kill and then he dashes through and then he has blade. Like that doesn't happen. Sombra doesn't have that capability to like, boom, I got ult really fast. Like it takes minimum 2 minutes to get an ult. Like that's on like you're constantly shooting the tank, you're throwing a virus every time it's off cooldown. So you never have it before the supports have their ults because they just have to heal. And they don't even need ults because they have Suzu. So I think Kiriko really shuts her down. And by shuts her down, I mean like you just have to like right now I'm still trying to figure it out. You like go in, virus, shoot, translocate, don't even try to kill her. You hear the bell, you go back in, you go for somebody else because if you go for her, she's gonna blink and she's fine. So trying to figure out like I have to do these like 3 steps. In those 5 seconds, nobody else can take damage on our team. Otherwise, they just get snowballed because I'm out of the fight. But anyways, I think she's in a interesting spot. The problem is if you increase her damage, she just gets scary. Like you just can 1v1 like everybody, and that's not that good. Like it shouldn't be that easy to 1v1 people. It should, like it's definitely more manageable to 1v1 people if they're truly isolated. The problem is Kiriko can be anywhere. So since you are more committal, you're supposed to get those kills because you don't have that free escape, but Kiriko stops you. So like the trade-off was supposed to be like, oh, she gets more kills and she's less like you can die. So I'm dying like twice as much, if not 3 times as much as I usually did, which is fine if I'm getting more kills, but I don't know that I'm actually getting more kills. So it's like
Right.
she got worse because you don't survive as much, so you have less uptime, less time to get thing. You're getting EMP less. EMP is worse. So overall, I'm still on the like.
Still on the fence.
She's kind of
Still nothing
bad in terms
Oh,
of
really?
Kiriko existing. But then the question is that a Sombra problem or is that a Kiriko problem? And that's where I don't know.
We shrug. It's interesting.
And should enemy team has a Kiriko. Oh, I just don't play Sombra. Like, is that okay? So
if there wasn't a Kiriko in the game, like, have you found more success though? Like, if there isn't a Kiriko in the game?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And it's that being able to do some chip damage as well.
Right.
For instance, if they have like Iliari BAP, you go behind them, you throw the virus on the pylon, kill it, translocate out, come back in. You have 10 seconds to do anything,
right?
Because the pylon's not healing. So they're overall, you can either go for Iliari, you can go for BAP, because if you go for BAP, Iliari has to peel, kind of. Like BAP has to use shift, BAP has to use immortality, and it's like, okay, you got a big immortality cooldown off. And you wrap back around again, kill the pylon again, wrap back around again. Immortality's gone, pylon's gone. Now what do we do?
Right.
And you could even kill the pylon, translocate, kill the tank, where she has to use her healing. And if she's sitting there healing, then she can get shot and she can't just back up and heal. So you can create these opportunities without just getting the kill. But Kiriko is like, it just, I don't know. It's just, I'm still figuring it out. If they have Kiriko Brig, it's like, there's so much AoE healing from Brig, and you can't kill her, you can't threaten her, you can't threaten Kiriko. So yeah.
So another interesting perspective, and then we'll kind of move on from Sombra, because we definitely have given a good discussion on this. Is I've been talking a lot to Samito. Samito's always, we've got this group chat. He's always like dropping. He's a very like, as you know, of anyone who knows Samito, he's very excitable. He's always like instantly something happens. He's like, I got 10 opinions on this. So he's been telling me all about Sombra. He's like, guys, this hero's fucking great, but like I'm just inting on her. Like he's described it as Overwatch 1 Doomfist, where he's like, basically what I do is I just run into the front line and I trade 2 and I die, and that's like my whole thing. So like he's having fun, he says, kind of treating her that way, where he's just like very aggressive. He knows he's gonna die. He says his deaths per 10 are like ridiculously high, but he's just trying to trade 2 kills before he goes, right? So he sees like, oh, I'm 70% win rate right now. GM1 is fucking great. So he's having a good time. So we'll see. It's definitely early days. We'll see how it manifests. But yeah, interesting that they tried this. It took a little bit of time, but at least they tried something, and maybe the annoying will be less of a thing now, although the spawn camping, we'll see.
Sorry, I have 2 more points real quick.
Yeah, go for it.
Support's not being used to healing Sombra. That's something that like it's just gonna take time, because I'll just be standing really and you're like, hello, I'm right here.
You're invisible to them too.
Yeah, it's like, and I get it, I understand, like you're used to like, oh, she's fine, and it's like there was, what was it, there was like a Zarya just like running at me, and like they were just pocketing a Sojourn, and it was like, I can't just, you saw me translocate, I can't get anywhere else, like, so on one end, the people playing against it are like, chase her, and the defensive are like, da, we don't care. So it's definitely a little learning curve on like your supports learning how to peel for you. And again, you shouldn't be putting yourself in those situations all the time, but it's like, there's times where you can't get away from everything, especially if they have like a Genji, Tracer, Winston, like one of them jumps you translocate, the other one jumps you, you're not supposed to just fall over. That's not how it works. You got Suzu, and it's like, it's so funny because I'll get like, the Suzu comes in right as I die, the tree comes in right as I die, like all these things come in like, oh, I was supposed to do that but I didn't. So that's going to take a little time, and that might be what I'm feeling, where it's like, and a little bit of, again, I'm a little bit lower in my rank, so like people are hard focusing, but then my team isn't like hard supporting. So it's like a weighted, like I'm not able to do as much because there's more attention or whatever. But
Right.
I don't know. That might be some copium. We'll see. But I think that was it.
Right. And actually, just one quick note from my POE, the automatic invis is kind of clunky, I think. Like, it's like sometimes you're like, I want to invis, but it won't because I'm on the point. And it's like, oh shit. Right? Or like, yeah, so there's going to be...
Or when you're overtime push bot and you're the last one on it and it's running like crazy, but it keeps putting you in invis.
Yeah. There's some maps that it's bugged. Because I think Toronto it works, but then the other push maps it doesn't work. Because Toronto it keeps you out of invis, but the other ones it doesn't. You have to sit there and like karate chop the air or just keep shooting. The one other point I had was the whole trade-off is that, you know, she dies more, she's easier to kill, but like she's supposed to kill more and be more of a threat. And I think support mains are going to be upset at the annoyingness of like, she just comes out of invis and kills me. And it's like, well, if I was in Tracer, I probably would have killed you there too. So it's like, she's supposed to now. Like she has to, because that's her value now, is she's easier to chase and easier to kill. So I think a lot of supports are gonna be like, old Sombra wouldn't have killed me there, but it's like, okay, but she is supposed to because she got nerfed in the other places. So I think we're gonna have a little bit of that. But we'll see.
Fair. Well, thank you. I think that was a very great discussion on new Sombra. So I appreciate all of you guys' inputs, and I think that gives us a very good rounded base to start off, and then we'll see again as people adapt to the hero. We'll see how it kind of evolves. I personally, I don't think I'm gonna see a lot of Sombra in my games, but again, I don't know if it's an EU diff or what. Like, I don't know if it's more NA thing. All right, let's. What?
Much fair on EU.
Yeah, for real. Oh boy, we'll get to that part. But yeah, it's just like, oh god, anytime we're losing, Pharah Echo, mercy, let's go. Okay, let's talk first the Hitscan. We're gonna have to clump them all roughly together, but this is often, I think, when people talk about like broken DPS or like DPS taking over the game, I think Hitscan is usually where their focus lies, because the likes of like Sojourn and Widowmaker in particular, I think, have this capability of feeling quite oppressive in the right hands. So let's go to Kragie first. Kragie, the general state of Hitscan at the moment, and do you think there's any like outliers, that any particular heroes, like let's say, so we're going to discuss Ashe, Cassidy, Sojourn, and Widowmaker as the Hitscan. I know like Bastion and Tracer and Sombra would count, but let's talk about those four. Do you feel like any of them... Soldier and Soldier. So sorry, Soldier 76 as well. 5. Any of them like that stand out particularly to you as overly weak, overly strong, or where do you feel about the role in general?
Yeah, Cassidy's probably the weakest of all those 5, I think. Widowmaker, I feel like is in a pretty good state right now. I do like that characters are map dependent and you can't play Widow on every map. But yeah, the maps that she is good in, she is very deadly. I remember I had a game, I think it was yesterday, with a French player named Askin. He's really good at Widowmaker, and we were playing, I think it was Havana, and yeah, 2 headshots at least every fight. It can feel oppressive, but mad respect to the Widowmakers that can do it, because it does require like a lot of skill, especially if you're playing against like a Tracer or Genji. Like hitting a Tracer in a 1v1, like every time I die to a Widowmaker in a 1v1 and I'm the Tracer, I just have to give them respect for hitting that shot, because it is genuinely really hard. Soldier I think is pretty fine. I think Sojourn is fine too. Ashe. Yeah, I think most of the hit scans are fine within the role right now, yeah.
Interesting. And so you said Cassidy is the weakest. What makes you feel like he's the weakest?
I feel like what makes Cassidy strong is him being able to kill somebody before they realize that they're gonna die. But his damage just isn't high enough for that, because people will realize that and they'll get healed quickly, and he can't out damage heals. Whereas like Soldier will do more consistent damage, for example, so people will realize that they're dying, but a lot of the times it's hard to out heal a Soldier that's hitting a lot of his shots. Ashe Ashe is probably the second weakest, I'd say, with Cassidy. Yeah, I don't really see a lot of Ashe these days.
But do you feel like any of these are like in a problematic way? Like they're fine. You said you're just fine within the role, but you don't think it's like if you change like the other complaints we had earlier, then you'd be fine with them.
Yeah, I think they're all right. Yeah, for the most part. But I think the reason why I think they're all right is because they don't have to duel Rico most of the time. So,
Fair
yeah.
enough. Fair enough. Widow, and we're talking about Widow hitting in a duel and respect. I've seen plenty of Deku clips where you snipe out a Tracer diving you or something like that. But how you feel about the hit scan at the moment, Deku? Like, you feel like they're fine compared to the rest of the DPS role?
I think they're pretty okay. I think, like Kragie said, Cass is probably the weakest for sure. I feel like he's very easily to get caught out against most comps, and also I feel his fall off damage the most, especially if you have to play against like Echo with a Mercy or Pharah with a Mercy. You just can't play Cass. You have to play either Soldier, Widow, or Ashe Pocket into that. So I think Cass is definitely the weakest out of all of them, but other than that, I think everyone's pretty fine in most maps. It's just very map dependent, right? So I think it's okay.
Right. Well, the Mercy element, I mean, I've kind of dodged it for a bit, but the Mercy element is, I think, an interesting one that we should bring up because you're mentioning going up against an Echo with a Mercy Pocket or a Pharah with a Mercy Pocket. But when people complain about DPS, it's often like a hit scan with a Mercy Pocket or a Flyer with a Mercy Pocket. But it's usually like, a hit scan, like a Sojourn. I think I've been seeing a lot of Sojourn pocketed by a Mercy, sometimes a Soldier and stuff. And a Bastion as well. Like I know he's not strictly hit scan, but like, or he is, but we're not talking about him right now. But still, like that. Do you feel like what do we do here? Like, do you think it's like the hit scans problem? Do you think it's the Mercy problem?
It's probably a Mercy problem because definitely if the enemy hit scan has a pocket and I have to play hit scan and I don't have a pocket, it's gonna be way harder for me to win any duels with them or even get picks on them. Like you have to kill the Mercy first or you just lose. And Mercy is very mobile and she just hides behind somewhere and sometimes she reses 10 feet away behind a wall, under a bridge, over a bridge, and you just can't do anything about it. So it's like I think Mercy would be the issue in that situation because anytime I'm playing against Hitscan and they don't have a pocket, it's fine. Like I don't see an issue. You can easily just whatever go dive or just out hit scan them. It's fine.
Right,
I have a hot take.
Yeah, go ahead, Kragie. Go ahead.
I think damage boost or damage amplification should only be on ults. I don't
Only
think
on
an
ultimates.
ability should have damage amplification.
Interesting. So no Discord, no damage boost, basically.
Zen
No
mains
blue
in
beam.
shambles.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Okay,
Fareeha,
here's my hot take.
Oh, go ahead. Everyone, yeah, just go ahead. Drop your hot takes. Ready? Let's go.
Sorry.
Fitzy,
This is a
go.
hot take on Mercy, real quick. The soul should only last like 8 seconds or 6 seconds
How long does it last?
till they
Right now.
till they
Well, the full
respawn.
respawn time, right? So the full 10.
Because over time it could be a really, really, really long time.
Be like
Oh,
15.
true.
So
Yeah.
that way it's like they have to go for it.
Mm-hmm.
Because what happens sometimes, like middle of fight, you get a pick, and then at some point during the fight, they're like, "Do I heal or do I res?" They go for the res, then maybe you get the kill. But there's that like, "Oh, I'm healing. Okay, we made it. I can res." So it'll make that
Right.
decision a little bit,
True.
If res needs to get nerfed, that's my hot take.
I agree.
Fair. Okay. Fareeha, do you have any hot takes you want to add to this equation, or do you want to vibe off of some of the hot takes that have been given? Particularly, I think Kraggie's hot take about damage boost, and then also the discussion about hit scan and damage boost.
My wild hot take on Mercy is that it would be interesting if they changed how her healing worked. If it was percentage based instead of just like her being really good at single target pocketing glass cannons. Because I think that would offset some of the trouble she has healing tanks. So like say she like heals at a rate depending on the target's maximum HP. So that means that she would heal targets that are 200 HP a little bit slower than she would be able to heal a 600 HP target. And I think that could make things a bit more interesting, but I don't know.
Just total healing, not like they've lost that much health.
Yeah.
Interesting. Before I go back to Fareeha, Deku, you want to throw in another hot take somewhere? You got some lingering balance thing that you're like, hot take.
Okay, I swear to God, like I feel like Mercy res wasn't as crazy in Overwatch 1. Like I feel like with each patch, she can res farther away or like move more while she reses as well. Like they're just secretly like adding that every patch. I think it's true though. Like I've seen it so many times now where I'm just like, how is that possible? That never happened in Overwatch 1. So I don't know.
They're getting better.
Nerf res.
They're evolving.
The Mercy main.
Make her stand still while she's rezzing. So at least like
That's some
I don't know.
Overwatch 1 stuff.
Well, I think it's
Master
because
res.
I think it's because what people. I mean, I'm not saying you don't realize it, but a lot of people don't realize is that the distance from where you can res gets extended once you start the res, right? So it's like it's 5 meters to start the res, but once you start the res, it's like 10 meters or something. Like goes way further. So it feels ridiculous because you're like, this is the soul, this is the mercy. Surely this is the limit of which like you can res, but then they suddenly start creeping further and further away, and you're like, that didn't cancel. That didn't like that. At no point did that cancel. So,
Yeah.
anyways, I think that's part of it. Let's go back then before the Mercy players get upset at us for kind of turning this into a Mercy discussion. I only brought it up because I think it's relevant because I whenever I see complaints about Hitscan, it's usually a pocketed Hitscan that causes ire. Like I don't other than Widowmaker where people are annoyed, I don't generally see people too upset about just a Sojourn on his own or a Sojourn on her own or a Cassidy on his own. Although I do hate that guy. It's the Mercy effect that seems to really annoy people. But do you feel like you're happy with the state of Hitscan in general, Fareeha, as someone who's often being shot at by them?
I will add one last thing to the Mercy stuff. I feel like I'm less annoyed by Mercy because I play Pharah and Sombra a lot. I'm like, those are like the only two DPS that can do something about Mercy res, and so I'm like, just cancel it, just get better. But
Skill issue.
no, it is so frustrating when you're on a DPS that like can't turn the corner, or like you're Tracer and you just pulse bomb someone, you full committed all your cooldowns, and you're just like, well, shit, like I just hit this crazy skill shot and they're back. Man. and I can see the pain in Deku's eyes when he said that. She's like, but yeah, I don't know. I don't feel like hit scans are too oppressive, and I think I do agree. Like the times when it's really, really difficult to deal with them are when I have to deal with one that's getting pocketed either by Mercy or by a Life Weaver, and it's like,
Right.
it's tough. It's tough to outburst that. So I
Interesting.
think they're in a fine place. If they kill me, I feel like they earned it. If I kill them, it feels like I earned it. So yeah.
Fitzy, any that are particularly problematic to you? Like any that you're like, this one, or maybe or not even problematic, maybe one you're like, man, this guy really could use some help. I would be shocked if you were to say that, but yeah, any of them that you feel are annoying?
Of the 5, no, I think yeah, they don't have a ton of burst damage. It's yeah, you get kills, cool. You hit your shots. There's not like one hero that's just mowing people down every game. So yeah, none of those in particular are like, wow, they're OP. In terms of underpowered, I don't know, because again, I'm playing Sombra, so
Fair enough.
still figuring that out.
Fair enough. Well, speaking of characters that mow people down, let's talk about Bastion next then. I'll go to Fareeha first, as someone who says that she kind of refuses to switch over to Bastion. How do you feel about the hero? Like, firstly, maybe why don't you like playing Bastion, and like, how do you feel about his power level, considering they nerfed his, his heal thing by the end of season 6?
He is boring. He's it's basically kind of like when you see a Brig pop ult and she turns into Giga Brig, and you're just like, okay, I'm just gonna hang back and not play for 8 seconds, and then we go in. That's Bastion every time he has his turret form. And so you play around that as to the best of your ability, but then you can't control what your team does in that time. It's like you gotta just not feed for that moment, and you gotta help try to suppress what they're trying to do. It just, I don't know, it turns the game into a waiting game, and I hate it when that happens. And so that's mainly why I don't like Bastion playing against him. Why I don't like playing Bastion myself is like it takes away so much of the nuance of the game, and it makes everything just about sitting there and shooting.
Kragie, you're nodding. You're like, yeah, I hate that shit.
Yeah, it's a lot like what happened with Brick. I feel like you get this very easy one-dimensional character that you kind of have to play. So you play it, and what eventually happens is that you forget a lot of what you used to know on like a lot of characters that required a lot more skill. So once we eventually get to a point where Bastion will get a nerf, which is hopefully soon, what happens is that people are gonna have to start playing other characters, and they almost have to relearn them because they've been used to like sitting back, like just chilling on the chair and playing Bastion because it is very easy. So yeah, I think Bastion is a good character. I just don't think Bastion should be meta. I don't think it's fun for a lot of DPS players to play Bastion. I don't think a lot of tank players enjoy playing against Bastion. I genuinely don't see. I think it's only the Bastion mains that really enjoys Bastion. So
And there's not that many of them out there that I know of.
no.
But so do you feel like in this new season with the change and stuff, he's still going to be as strong as he was?
Oh yeah. I think he is. They'll have to. I think one thing that needs a big nerf that a lot of people don't talk about is his right click. I think, like Fareeha said, like you can outplay Bastion's shift is just by hiding. Like once he shifts, like he either like just move behind a wall or like speed boost out, and then engage on him, which is what people do now. But his right click still does a ton of damage. So I think that's what they need to tackle, because I do feel like he needs a lot of damage when he's in turret form, but he has a lot of damage outside of turret form now as well with his buffed right click.
I agree. I actually think the right click is not talked about enough because it also displaces you. And like, there's been many a time where like I suddenly like I think I'm safe, and then like the high pitched squeal of the Bastion explosion, and suddenly I'm like popped up into the air, and like boom, instantly you die afterwards, right? So
Yeah.
it definitely feels a little bit like they overtuned after they were like, we want Bastion to be played more. They were like, well, fucking buff everything then, let's go. And now like all parts of his kit feel a little bit overtuned. Deku, you're happy to, you're the Bastion abuser. You're happy to switch over and.
Well, I'm not happy to switch to it. I will if I have to. You know what I'm saying? And I have had to a lot, especially last season. All the time, you had to just did they go this? Oh, you just go Bastion, and then they also go Bastion, and then it's just Bastion v Bastion, and the tanks are not having fun. You're bored out of your mind, and you can't really do anything about it. But I think, like Craig said, Bastion should not be meta ever. He should just be like a niche pick into certain comps or whatever. Or maybe, if people like one-tricking them, you can, but, have fun, actually getting countered. But, yeah, I don't think Bastion should ever be meta. He's really boring to play against, and yeah, I think he needs to be nerfed more, for sure.
If Bastion, Orisa, or Brig are ever meta, the game is in a bad place.
Yes, agreed.
That's an interesting take. Personally, I agree with that take, but I will try and speak for the people who feel upset by a take like that, and I'd like to elaborate on that, because I think a lot of people are like, well, it's easy for you to say, like, you're happy your hero is getting played, but what about my hero? I was born to play Bastion. I love Bastion. I love whatever, let's say, this doesn't have to be Bastion. Let's say they love Orisa or they love Moira, that a lot of people dislike as being meta as well, right? Or Brig. It's like, well, what about my hero? Does my hero's like time in the sun not matter?
You had your chance. You had your moment of glory, It's time to move on past that. I don't know. It's like, because, like, Widow's not really hard meta at all ever, unless, like, certain maps you can play her. She's really good in certain maps. But Bastion, you could just play him all the time and just mess up the enemy tank in any situation, and there's nothing they can really do about it except, like, hope that your supports are good enough at peeling for you and nobody dies by the time his shift is over. So I don't know. It's just not fun for both parties.
I mean, even before he got the big buff, he was still like he was like, if you really dislike the enemy tank, like you just went Bastion, like you could still pick
Yeah.
him. Now it's just like now it's a must pick all the time.
I really like this motivated by spite pick. I really just don't like that motherfucker. I'm picking Bastion.
I'ma be
I know
real,
that
yeah.
guy. I fucking hate that guy. I'm going
I hate
Bastion.
that tank player. I'm going Bastion, man.
Fuck him.
Yep.
Fitzy, do you agree with this take? That like, I mean, I'll elaborate more from Free in a second, but do you agree with this idea that like certain heroes shouldn't be meta? I think Bastion is often one spoken in those terms. Like, is there like a pecking order of what is allowed to be meta and what isn't?
You know what I say to all of these unfun metas is hero bans. Listen, you're not gonna. We don't have to talk about depth of it, but you know, this is just once again. There's like 1, 2, 3 heroes that are like, yeah, they're okay, but like, I just don't want to see them every game. You know, if you could have your like, okay, my Bastion games are limited to 50%. I'm not talking about the dev hero bans. I'm talking about game starts. You got 10 seconds. Everyone bans someone they don't like. Okay, 2 of them got banned out of the list of 10. Boom. Game starts.
You hide the names, so you
Kiriko's
can't
would be
like-
gone. Kiriko's would randomly be gone. Sombras would randomly be gone. Bastions would. Widows on some of the bullshit maps would be gone. All right. So you wouldn't just have to deal with it every single time. There you go. That's my. This has been going on since Dive, since Moth meta. We're talking like 6, 7 years. All of these metas that we've come across every season. And we have like this like 1 month of like, oh, it's great. And then they're like, well, let's just tweak this 5%. And they're like, wow, this is terrible. This hero's picked every game. And it's like, at least you would have like 50% of the time you don't play against that hero. Or like maybe it's 75%. Maybe they need to nerf it a little more because it's constantly played. So
and that would
anyways,
inform their balancing decisions moving
Yeah.
forward.
a little bit. And then, you know, there's a whole like, what about the one tricks? What about the whatever? My whole thing, every time, every season, every discussion always comes on. There's 1 or 2 or 3 problem child heroes that are like, they're just annoying. I don't want to play against them every single game. Every single game we got this. Oh, you just switched to that. Maybe they wouldn't have 100% ban rate, but as long as you don't have to play against them every single game, yeah, that's my take on heroes being meta that shouldn't be, but also, yeah, I do think there are some heroes that should be more niche, but because obviously some people like playing Bastion, some people like playing Sombra, some people whatever, and those people that are the 1 tricks, 2 tricks, whatever, can learn some other heroes, you know, for the time that their hero is busted.
A man after my own heart. Yeah, absolutely. Kragie, any thoughts on that? Actually, just real quick before we actually go back to talking about the heroes.
No.
You don't have any thoughts at all on hero bans, pro against? You're like, let's let it
No.
be.
No, I think I like it was kind of like the same with the passive. It's like I don't really care if it's
Right.
there. I don't really care if it's
Fair.
Yeah.
This you're spoken as a true neutral. It's like I play everything and I'll beat everything, whatever, man. I don't care, whatever. Deku, any sort of inclinations on that?
I don't like hero bans in my opinion, because I don't know. If I want to play Overwatch, I want to be able to play all of it, not just certain bits and pieces of it. You know, I want everything to be playable in every situation. But obviously, that's asking for a lot. But I
So
feel like with
Bastion
hero-
every situation.
Okay, but just nerf it and then bye Bastion. You know.
But what if they don't nerf it for months? Which is what happens.
Well, you know, I'll just play Bastion, I guess.
Okay, well we won't go that way. I do think I think the fact that we have quite slow like, you know, at best we get like 1 a month. I do think that is another argument in favor of it, but let's not dive too deep into that. I'll go back once more to the initial thing and then we'll go back to discussing some of the specific heroes. But Fareeha, do you want to elaborate on this sort of hierarchy? Because this is an idea that comes up a lot. Whenever I'm in my chat and like I'm streaming, I'll complain about stuff like this where I'll be like, fucking brainless ass hero. I don't want this hero to be good. Like, this hero should be bad. And someone in chat will be like, what are you saying, SCP? You're saying Orisa doesn't require as much skill as Sigma? Like, pfft, you fucking elitist bastard, like shut the fuck up, and like your hierarchy is wrong. So like, do you think like like you kind of said there should be like this hierarchy, but what is that hierarchy based off of? Like, what should it come down to?
My hierarchy is based on how much it takes away from other players' interactivity with the game, if that makes sense. So I think that Orisa, Bastion, Brig metas are really frustrating because it slows down the game significantly, because it changes the limits and the confines of how you can operate, right? Because when there's a Brig, you have to play afraid as Tracer. You have to you have to count, you have to be methodical, you have to be really, really careful. Like Fitzy was saying with Sombra, you have to play like cyclically, and you have to kind of go in, and then you come out of invis, you hack them, and then you go in invis, and then you come back, and then you cube them, and then maybe you get the kill, maybe you don't, maybe you go in. It's like you have to be so mindful of your limitations because you can die so easily, and these characters don't die easily. There's just such a big width of like allowance of mistakes, and there's that buffer. It's like having multiple safety nets. So your mistakes matter less, and therefore you do more by doing less, and that doesn't feel great.
Interesting. Nice. Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, so a coherent ideology. I like it. As we move on, actually, one note, because I'm looking at the patch notes, I forgot to ask your guys' opinion on the Cassidy roll buff. Guys, Overwatch transformed this roly boy 75% damage reduction. Any thoughts? Anyone?
Does it change it? Does it change any breakpoint?
I think
really.
tire.
Maybe
tire,
a
I think.
Fire.
Oh, really?
You can
If he
roll. You can
rolls-
roll a tire and shrug it off. And also the
'cause
distance
what's
of a
tire
diva
do?
bomb.
600? Is it 600 tire?
Something like that. Yeah, I think the diva bomb as well. Like depending on the distance you are, you can almost face tank it.
Yeah.
Any
Yeah,
Sure. He already,
Yeah,
had,
no,
he
I
already
really
had the
care.
damage reductions. Sure, give him one more. Like, oh, he survived that.
Wait, you know what? Since we talked about tire, why does Junkrat do so much damage, bro? Still.
Okay, well
it's
let's
Overwatch 2
talk.
now.
Let's talk Junkrat then.
Why?
All right, Deku, go ahead. What do you dislike about Junkrat?
I
Go
don't
ahead.
know. I've been playing tank lately, and I'm not very good at tank. Like, I'm top 500 in my other two roles, but tank I'm like low masters or whatever. And anytime I play against a Junkrat, it's just, oh, I'm gonna get tired and die this fight. Oh, it's gonna happen again. And he just, anytime a Junkrat is focusing me on tank, I just feel my HP just goes so
Play
fast.
Zarya.
Well, yeah, but like, I want to play Junkrat.
You get full charge.
Okay, but sometimes you get full charge and then you still get blown up, you know?
But what if you could ban Junkrat and 50%
Stop
of your
it.
game?
Stop with your
Ooh.
propaganda. You're not gonna get me. But yeah, I think Junkrat does way too much damage for 5v5 versus what he did in 6v6 and double shield and whatever. What are
Interesting.
you guys? What do you think?
I think Junkrat is fine. I think if anything, I think Junkrat's ultimate needs a little damage increase so he can kill Divasmech.
Oh boy.
Yeah, I think yeah, but then again, I mean, I play whenever I play tank, I play Zarya, Orisa, and Diva mainly. So I don't really feel Junkrat except for it's free charge. I think he's very easy to kill. I don't really bother too much. The only problem is when I play DPS and he comes in like a missile and just one shots me in the back line.
Yeah.
That's the only problem, but I'm okay with that. Usually just dies right after, so.
I swear Junk and Echo just fly above without you like ever hearing them, and then by the time you do hear them, you're already dead. So I don't know if they changed the sound cue on them or something, but it feels like
If they're
that
sliding
happens
on
way more
roofs, they
often.
don't make sounds.
True.
Man, they're slipping in these sound changes, these mercy distance
Yeah.
rushes.
The fucking sneak patches.
Patches.
When Deku gets her hand on the
Oh.
code, bro, it's over for the devs. It's over when she gets her hands on the code. No, I do agree. Like I have a vivid memory of like this game on Midtown on the third point when there's that like little archway. And I remember being BAP and I'm just like playing and I'm shooting. I'm like, life is good. They're respawning. I'm fine. And then suddenly like the Junkrat just comes exploding up from under. And then like one shot and then the concussive and I was dead. And I was like, where'd this bitch come from? I didn't hear anything. It's suddenly the ha ha ha's in my face. But I wouldn't say I have a massive problem with him, but maybe I just haven't seen enough of him. Fareeha, do you have a problem with Junkrat?
Junkrat is my bitch. So.
All right, yeah, fair.
Yeah, usually no problem at all. But if I'm on support and I'm the one dealing with the tire, because when you play support, like you are the magnet, you are the shining bat signal for every single Junkrat Bastion ult in existence. Like it just hones in on you. So that's when it's suffering. But other than that, I'm good.
Yeah, getting tired is hurting. Fitzy?
Oh yeah.
It's fine. Yeah, I run into traps because you can't see anything while you're invis and you're running fast. Actually, probably the stealth moving slower probably helps you against Junkrat because you don't run into them as quickly. The traps, that is. You can cancel tire, you know, if I'm talking Sombra stuff. But I swear they've changed his like combo so many times though. I don't know what one shots and what doesn't and how close he has to hit it. Yeah, I feel like it. I don't know what his damage is. I think is it 120 and 130 or whatever. I don't know. Whatever it is, I feel like 90 and 120 or 130 and 80, whatever it is.
You're just throwing numbers out now at this point.
No, because they've changed it. Like and I don't remember which one is which because they flip that sometimes, and I don't play Junkrat, so I'm not.
So it says the frag launcher 40 for direct, 80 for splash, and so 120. Then the concussion mine is 110.
110.
Yeah. So 120 plus 110, like that. Because there was a time where it was like 120 plus 80, so it's like they had to hit direct both.
Right.
But yeah, you know they've changed. So I don't know. He does some damage. It's usually just like a lot of like, dude, just tank go Zarya, you win. Like quit trying to run a Ramatra or a Reinhardt into this. You're just like. They're just like, oh, someone get the Junkrat. He's like, he's hiding behind a corner and peeking and shooting just you. Like, just go Zarya and you get full charge and you just roll them over. But that's, yeah. You can deal with them easier on Sombra now because you can kind of you can peek with the virus because you can peek, throw virus, come back in a second. Again, that's like if he's hiding on it by himself or whatever. But yeah, he's okay. Just yeah, sometimes he's annoying, sometimes he's trying to do his flank thing and I ping him out and then he gets upset. Junkrat mains don't like me because I got rid of the drop tire. If you recall, standing on the ledge and the tire dropping, I was like, that's a bug, there's no counterplay. And then they're like, Fitzy did this, and I'm like, yeah, that was BS. It was BS though. Like it was just like you couldn't shoot the tire because it literally disappeared and would appear on the ground. And then on Rialto, they also got rid of that where it was like you'd stand on the wall and it would like appear on the top. Again, those were bugs that were just like stupid. Well, it's just like there's no counter to that. Like there's no. You can't. The whole thing with Junkrat is like, oh, if he ults in front of you, you can kill his tire. Not he ulted in front of me, but it was on the ceiling and then it killed me anyways because. It just appears. But anyways, that's gone now. So yeah. And you can hack him out. You can hack him out of the cast time. So it's a little riskier now. But yeah.
So I think this is definitely where our the elo bias is showing. So I think a lot more people probably be inclined to agree with Deku than with Kragie's take that the tire needs a buff more than anything. Because I think that I don't know. Genuinely, I cannot say how. No one can realistically say what it feels like to play against Junkrat and Plat, even because I get this question all the time. I'm gonna talk about it for a second in the podcast. I always end up having to answer it in my stream, but somewhere in the comments, someone's always like, "Why don't you bring the average player into the call, SCB? Why is it always these top 500 streamers?" I'm like, my guy, even if I got some rando Plat to represent Plats, there's no singular person who could represent the Plat experience as wide, or the medal rank experience as wide as it is. Any singular person could not encapsulate that for you. So anyone's opinion is as good as the other. So I'll take these guys as informed opinions. amongst a bunch of other reasons. But yeah, I think it's hard to say what people are feeling in Plat about Junkrat, but I do still hear people on Deku's side kind of complaining about the ratty boy. I think particularly what you kind of mentioned, Fitzy, the ability to kind of shoot around the corner and you never see him and he's just kind of chucking the crap at a certain spot and you're the tank and you have to walk through it. Is that kind of what annoys you, Deku?
Yeah, I also feel like you can't really. There's no sound cue most of the time. If it hits you, you're just
Boom.
boom, you're dead. So you can't really hear it as much as like I don't know other stuff in the game. You just get hit with it and it's like instant, pretty much instant cast. But yeah, I don't know. Mainly my issue is like getting one shot as an entire tank just by tire alone is kind of annoying. It's like it makes tank even more unfun. So I mean, I don't play it too much, but I have been, and that's one of the things I hate dealing with. Like, sure, playing against Bastion the tank sucks, but you just wait out his turret form. But with a tire, you would just have to pray to God that your Kiri cleanses you or your Bap immortalities you, if you even have one. But yeah.
This is
Just
definitely
Zarya bubble it.
this is definitely where the hero
If
pool
you're playing
is
Zarya,
different.
sure. Oh, what if
The
your
hero
bubble's on cooldown? What do you do then?
You have a second one.
The other one's also on cooldown. You
The
used
hero
it on
pool
your
diff is
supports 'cause-
the hero pool diff is manifesting because Kragie's like, I play Diva, Junkrat, Diva, Risa, and Zarya, so I don't give a shit. Buff the tire, man. Buff it so that it actually does something to me. And then Deku's like, what the fuck?
It just needs to be able to one-shot Diva's mech though. Right now, I think she survives with like full HP. I think it's like 5 or 15 health, something like that. I think you should be able to one-shot her mech.
Interesting. Fair enough. Okay, so
Or
you feel
maybe
like,
like
you should one shot
like
a
a
tank, basically.
30 damage extra buff, to make sure it goes through.
Then it could kill Cassidy too. Then maybe it has a chance to kill Cassidy.
Bro, then he needs another buff.
At this point,
6%.
they should just give him a blink at this point, right? Like, surely it's just a blink. Like, it's what they're trying to give him, but just a very clunky blink where he's like, I'm over here, fellas. I'm rolling over this direction.
Give him Kiriko TP.
Oh, God.
Oh, no.
That's when we uninstall Overwatch. Okay, before Deku cooks anymore, let's move over to Echo then. Kragie, I want to get your POV because you're a fellow EU player, and so you've been terrorized by plenty of Echoes and Pharahs in your time. So give me Echo first. We'll talk about Pharah later.
Yeah, I think Echo's in a good state. I do. I think Echo, being the only of the two that's like reliable of the two flying characters that's reliable without a mercy pocket, which I like. Yeah, we'll get to Pharah later, but yeah, I do like that she's able to get value without having to have a mercy follow her all the time. I think she requires a lot of skill to get good with. There's a lot of like complexity to her with her beam. You can only really get value if they're below half HP. Yeah, I think she's in a good state.
Not to
Fair.
mention her ult. You have to know how to play every hero, essentially.
Yeah, true.
So you're happy with her as well, Fitzy?
Yeah, I think something that was really annoying with her before was that like she would copy a tank and then ult you twice because she had so much HP and just like so easy. So I think they made they made the ult come up faster, but like you can only get how much HP can you get? The max? I think on a tank it's like
300?
250 or 300.
300.
Granted, you just copied somebody that's tanky like Junker Queen and shout, or Zarya and just get bubbles, but yeah, I think she's okay. I think tank makers hate her, right? Because the beam on tanks or whatever. I haven't played a lot of Echo. I haven't. I mean, I know what she does, but in terms of like playing and being like, oh, I'm frustrated at this, I think she needs a buff, But yeah, playing with and against it doesn't seem, super oppressive or anything.
I think
But
there are
she
tank
seems
players.
like she can carry, absolutely.
Yeah, I think there are tank players who feel like I think they feel like she's the tank buster still left over. Like I think Reaper and Echo, I think get talked about, at least in my experience, get talked about a lot as like these tank shredders that have been carried over from Overwatch 1 that still tank shred, even though it's not necessarily what we want Overwatch 2 to be about. I don't know if that's something that you agree with, Fareeha. Like, How do you feel about Echo, your sort of flying counterpart?
I used to love Echo. I used to think she was so fun, but then they nerfed her mobility to death, and now she's just like, she's cannibalized Pharah in a way that isn't even engaging for me to play. I don't know. I think that Echo in some ways is more reliant on the team. She has a less punchy ult. I have not seen a good Echo ult since like 2022. Because everybody uses her ult as a get out of jail card. There's no thought behind it. Even if there is thought behind it, you're so squishy now that there's like very little opportunity to actually do something cool with it. And so I basically haven't played her this past year at all.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
That's very interesting because, yeah, you're kind of, usually people talk about her as like this high skill ceiling character, but you're kind of like, bored of
She's so
her.
boring. She's so boring. Yeah.
Interesting. Deku, how do you feel about Echo?
Okay. I think she's okay. I don't mind playing against her. Hot take though, I don't think Mercy damage boost should damage boost her beam too. I'm pretty sure it does. And because it makes everything just die instantly. And it's like it's not even a skill shot, so it's like
Yeah. That's
and
exactly it.
and if you're playing tank and you're half HP whatever, and he beams you with the mercy damage boost, you're gone forever. Well, not forever, but like
That's it.
you're just gone instantly.
New version. He leaves the game. You're done. Game over.
It just kicks you out of the game. Yeah. No, but other than that, my only complaint with Echo is that, and I just can never hear her if she's hovering over you, and it's you're not usually just looking straight up, and if she hovers right over you, you can never hear her coming until she puts all her stickies on you and presses E. So that's my biggest complaint with her. But that's it. I think she's alright. I don't mind.
Yeah, it might be another instance. We'll talk about it more when we get to Pharah, I think, about the mercy effect. Because like another thing, like the other day, I was playing BAP on Numbani, and like this set of stickies randomly, like just I'm like, okay, I ate a full set of stickies, and I'm like, I'm 200 HP. I'm just gonna wait till they explode, and I'm gonna shift, and I'll be fine. But they were damage boosted, and I didn't know, and I died. Right, and it's like that's very frustrating because I'm like, this is how I expect this interaction. This is the whole nature of the breakpoint, right? I expect this interaction to work this way. But because while the randomly shot stickies from downtown were mercy boosted and I didn't see that they were mercy boosted, I'm now going to die. So it's like, I think that's where, again, these breakpoint issues crop up again. But it seems like most of you guys feel like she's fine, or in Fareeha's case, you think she's boring. But it might also just be, I think one of the things with DPS characters, we often forget about them a lot because we don't see them a lot. I think like Echo, Junkrat as well, maybe. It's like, we don't necessarily see a lot of them in our games, so it can be hard to feel like the frustrations or the weaknesses, I guess, of the character, where maybe someone who one-tricks Echo will be like, because I know Sam loves Echo, and he'd probably be like, oh, well, the beam is dog shit, or like, well, this is crap, so that's why nobody plays Echo anymore, just play this instead. But I imagine if she was perma-meta, we might be having a different discussion. But all right, let's move on then to Genji. So fan favorite, but the meme of nerf Genji persists. Kragie, nerf Genji? Question mark.
No, I think Genji's in a good spot right now. I think might be because dive is, at least in my games, a lot of people are starting to play dive now. He did get a bug recently, I think, where it's like when you take out blade and you hold left click, it doesn't slice it, so you have to like click it now. Which is a little annoying, but yeah, I think Genji's in a good spot. I play against a lot of good Genjis, also a lot of bad Genjis. It really depends on who's playing the character, which in my opinion tells me that he's in a good state. That not everybody can just pick up the character and kill 5 people. So yeah, I like his kit as well. I like the fact that like when you actually get a kill, you get rewarded for it. And it can snowball that way. Yeah.
Interesting. Fareeha, how do you feel about old Gangarino?
I kind of agree with Kragie. Yeah, I feel like in the hands of someone who is practiced and like good at him, he can still find a lot of value. But if it's just some schmuck, they're not gonna always be, winning fights with Nanoblade. It can actually be shut down now. So it's like, It's a skill thing. It's good.
Fair. Deku, how do you feel about the Genji boy?
I think Genji's fine right now. You know, a good Genji is gonna get value no matter what. But Nanoblade is, you know, but that's about it. Genji's alright. I don't mind playing with or against him. I think it's fun.
Audio listeners in the future, Deku fell asleep for a moment there, so I don't think she was enjoying the Nano Blade. Fitzy, Genji has like a bit of an interesting space in the community. I think he's such a popular hero that it always results in sort of a lot of discussion around him when things get changed. Because there's often, obviously, like I said, there's the meme of like, well, they just, if the devs have a problem, they nerf Genji. But there's always this like fine edge of a sword we're on where when they do buff Genji, suddenly in plat is just destroying everyone because all the plat Genji one tricks are like, finally my time is here, and they just like start nano blading every fight, and it's like annoying. But then at the high end, people complain because they're like, oh, it's a skillful character, but you see these clips crop up every now and then of like a Genji slashing someone like 10 times and it never dies because there's like a mercy beam on them or something. Like, do you think that this will forever be a problem, or is there some middle ground we can actually find that makes people happy with Genji?
This comes down to supports again.
He's
If
off.
they can, you know, I think I think there's people that still want the Genji from launch Overwatch 1, and that's not going to happen. You know, there's not an 8-second nano blade, or there's not an 8-second blade that just like, they have to use both support ults to defend against me, otherwise I'm gonna roll their whole team. Like that just wasn't balanced. And I think there's still Genji players that are like, yes, this is what he's meant to be. It's like, no, he shouldn't be able to do that. So I think he's in a good spot. The clips that I see where they're doing that is like, oh, there's a pylon and I can't kill him because there's a pylon. It's like, okay, well, just kill the pylon and then do it. Or like, oh, but they used Rally and Suzu. And it's like, well, there's an alt and Suzu is pretty much an alt. So there's, I guess all the times where I see it's like, oh, the supports are too strong is like, okay, well, you can't just be like, I just free win because I nano bladed, you know. Like naturally the enemy team is allowed to counter it in some capacity, and there's going to be a fight that like everything went wrong against you, or you just like, I must kill this person, doesn't matter how much healing they get. So yeah, I think he's in a good spot. I think the Genji players that whine about it are just being little bitches. So
fair. I feel like this is
good. He's good. He has times where he rolls. He gets play the game plenty. There's not going to win every single fight with it. That's fine.
There is a good amount of Genji players in the top 500 ladder board. I did notice quite a lot of Genji in there. So I don't think he's at all perhaps as weak as sometimes people make him out to be. And it's a universal theme now that we've seen in all three of the podcasts, where I think one thing with Overwatch 2 in particular, people don't necessarily appreciate the value they've already gotten from getting cooldowns and stuff out. But I also think that that's possibly a game design issue that we have to look at, is that it's hard for a player to recognize that what the things you've mentioned there, Fitzy, was like, well, you got a Suzu out and a let's say this guy did this to counter your thing. You've gotten value now. You can stop. I think a lot of players are like, well, I don't stop until I kill. That's how I play, right? So maybe
and a lot of times you want Nanoblade to like, oh, you got 4 with Nanoblade. Nice. That's expected. And so when you get like 1 or none and you're like, Genji, you're trash. And it's like, well, no, they just used all their abilities. But also it means that like the Nanoblade was just like, you initiated with it. No, you should know that they have all of those abilities and cooldowns and stuff. And you win anyways. Before, yeah. So I know playing Lifeweaver when I was trying to do when he was really bad, and that was something that's like, they nanobladed and like he went in, he dashed, I pulled that target, and then he dashed, or then he did his other dash, and then I put the tree, and then I pedaled them, and like it was like I had to do everything perfectly, like just a fraction before he sliced his blade. And like that was like, yeah, that felt cool that I defended against that and used my ultimate to do it, not just cleansed. But yeah. So that's where it's like, you know, we go back and forth on shitting all the supports are like, they should be weaker, but like I think Nanoblade playing against that whenever you do is like, oh, okay, it feels good surviving against it if you don't have like a beat drop that's like, okay, I pressed Q and everyone's fine.
Totally fair. I'm also appreciating this new era of Fitzy where your Hanzo hate has turned direction to another Shimada as Kiriko now. I'm here for it. Honestly, I feel you, brother. I feel you, brother.
She came out, I was like, no, this is not good. But now you can actually kill Hanzo. So the change, the winds of change or whatever they say is coming.
We have to get a new emoji that's like not, because you have the Hanzo with the target. We're gonna have to get a Kiriko. We're gonna have to get a Kiriko with a target on her. I'm here for it, honestly. Fuck that Kiriko. Fuck it. All right. Let's move on then to the other Shimada, Hanzo. Next up on the card. I'm gonna go to Deku first as someone, the Hanzo enjoyer or abuser, depending on your perspective. How do you feel about Mr. Shimada there? I mean, again, it was glorious yesterday when he was banned from comp, but he's back now, so what do you think?
Yeah, I didn't get to experience that yesterday. I think he's Widow with training wheels, personally. So, like, if I'm doing bet on Widow, I'll just go Hanzo and get the same, if not more value in certain maps. Especially maps where it's just, like, lanes down, like, you could just shoot, your arrows down a hallway and it'll hit something randomly. Like, I think he's okay. I don't think he's too busted, but just in certain maps, he's a little too good. That's my opinion on him. But I think he's fine. Like, you can counter him. You can kill him with Sombra now. You can if you're good enough on Widow, you can kill him as well. Or you could just go Hanzo yourself. Or you could go Echo. Or Pharah as well. So I don't think he's that big of a deal, like big of a problem.
Kragie, do you agree with this take?
Yeah, I don't think he's that busted right now. I think he has he's being played like you can play most places, but there's a few maps where he like thrives, like Havana and stuff like that. The only thing I don't really, it's more of like the slime level with Hanzo. It's very high. It's he's very unfun to play against, I would say. But in terms of balance, he's not that big of a problem right now, I'd say. I think everybody just annoys getting one shot all the time.
Yeah, I like the slime metric. Instead of annoying, now we move on to sliminess. I like it. No, I think it's a good take. I think like I don't because I'm a Hanzo hater, but it's not a balance thing. It's not like I think he's too strong. I just find it really fucking annoying to get like RNG headshot and one shot across the map by a guy who's like hitting the lottery with his arrows. Right? He's just like, oh, hope one of these hits, and then oh shit, one of them hit, and you're dead. And it's like, because again, like Deku was talking about these lanes. Like I always think of Colosseo, because it's just this one long place, and as a support, you have like two places you peek from. It's like left or right, and if he just chucks the arrow at that one spot, eventually the one time you will, and then your tank's complaining, blah blah blah. So annoying. I don't know if they'll ever address that. I don't know if they will ever fundamentally relook at that, but I think that's like, it's what pisses you off, I think, about the Hanzo element.
Yeah.
Fareeha?
Same thoughts.
Same thoughts.
Same thoughts.
That's
annoying,
fair.
But he's okay.
It's also hilarious, I think, to the point of like the blind Hanzo spam that they add. Like the whole reason they got this bug and had to remove him because they added the toggle shoot on. And I remember reading the patch notes and I was like, did they really need to make mindless Hanzo spam better? By just now, you don't even have to keep pushing every time you want to shoot a shot. You just push M1 once and then just stand there, and the turret will just keep firing Hanzo shots at the spot. So I do think it's kind of comical that the bug that caused the Hanzo to be locked out of comp for a bit was just out of enabling even dumber Hanzo playstyle. Fitzy, but you're like a transformed man now. You're on the Hanzo train. You're like, yeah, more Hanzo in my games. I'll farm this guy.
Reverse fall off damage. I'll still preach that. I'll still preach it.
All right. Well, for context, you want to explain to anyone what reverse fall off damage is?
The closer you get to him, the less damage he does. Just in a sense of like you're right on top of him. A sniper should not leap towards you to easier hit you. That's my whole thing. But again, you're point blank on Widow, you're like, oh, she hit that shot. Nice. Point blank on Hanzo, you're like, I'm playing with fire here. Like, this guy's gonna delete me so easy.
It's true. It's true.
So that's still my take. I'm glad that Sombra can now contest him 1v1. Now the matchup is a lot more in Sombra's favor. And again, it's just like if he's being pocketed, you still can't kill him easily. But now it's like, okay, he can't just play this stupid off angle. And I'm like, guys, there's a Hanzo here. I can't do anything about it. Just tank, come kill him. Now you can be like, all right, get back with your team. Come on. So yeah, I was switching to Mei. I'm glad they changed the kill threshold to be 240 instead of 250. Now it's like, ooh, is he damage boosted? I gotta watch out for headshot. But yeah, that'll still be my take. Is the that or the fact that Sonic Arrow should be able to be like, oh, there's an arrow in the wall, let me kill it, and then you like delete the Sonic or something. I don't know. That's just
Interesting.
another random counterplay to constant wall hacks.
Fair. I think Hanzo.
But yeah, I think he's in a decent. Like, he's fine.
I think Hanzo main's probably be like, yeah, well, come on, man. Like, we're not a strong hero particularly. Like, maybe we need buffs if anything. Like, it's not that strong. It's not that everywhere. So maybe Hanzo players would feel like, we're spending a lot of time talking about his annoying elements when he's not particularly problematic in power level. But yeah, I guess that's just the frustration coming out in all of us who've been rando headshotted one too many times. All right, go ahead, Kragie.
I think the Hanzo main community is probably the chillest. They're the one that are being trolled by the passive. True. They're the ones that have gotten the worst in terms of customizations, mythic skin.
True.
They are being forgotten about. Yeah, they're just chilling.
True. To be fair,
how did all of the Shimada get a mythic skin, though, is my question.
True. Weeb bias, if I've ever seen it.
Mm-hmm.
That is true. Although, yeah, I guess Hanzo mains would be like, well, ours is barely a fucking mythic, bro. It's like 2 options, and they suck. So, yeah, but they are chill. Hanzo mains are pretty chill, to be fair. Arg's like one of the chillest dudes. He's just like vibes. He's just, no matter what you do, he's just still doing the same shit. Roll out Hanzo and whatnot. So fair play. Fair play to him. All right, let's move on to Mei. Then you mentioned Mei, Fitzy, but I want to, we have a patch notes for Mei, which is that they removed the deep chill and basically took her back to where she was at roughly at the start of Overwatch 2. So now she does 100 damage per second and immediately slows enemies by 40% instead of building up. I'm going to take it to Deku first, and Deku, you go give your thoughts. I'm going to go to the bathroom real quick. If Deku's done, then anyone else feel free to take the floor. But Deku, Mei, thoughts?
Okay, I don't play Mei at all, but I've seen her in every single one of my games today. But that may be because I'm duoed with someone who plays Mei. But I'm just saying she's really, really strong right now. And I bet tanks are having a lot of fun playing against Mei right now. I'm not sure why they buffed the damage. I don't think that was necessary. But other than that, if you're playing tank, she's hell to deal with, and she just she survives everything, and I feel like she's an off tank herself sometimes. She plays like an off tank. I don't know. That's my opinion on it. I think
just go Zarya.
And bubble her.
Just be my answer to everything.
I go Rissa against Mei.
Ooh, that looks fun.
Yeah.
Oh god.
But
Can't
yeah,
be
I think
slowed.
I don't know. I don't play Mei myself, so I don't really have a strong opinion on her.
I used to play her a lot more, but
yeah, if I see Mei, I just go Widow, and I usually can one-shot her if she's just jumping around. But I don't know. Other than that, you guys got any opinions?
Yeah.
I hate the way that she got gutted in Overwatch 2, man. I feel like she kind of became a M1 bot. They took a lot of the nuance out of her kit, and walls feel less useful because of the changes to M1. I don't know if that's true because I haven't played her as much. And Blizzard feels really bad because everyone has a dash ability. And so you're tracking to death. You're like counting the seconds. Okay, Lifeweaver just used dash. Okay, he just used his pull. Okay, the Hanzo just jumped. Okay, the cast just rolled. And then you put it down in a center of a bunch of people that you just walled, and they all get out. And it's like yeah.
I mean, Fitzy's nodding, so I'll let him have his rant, and then we can have Kragie's opinion.
I mean, I haven't played a lot of Mei yet. I mean, obviously, I've been trying to do the Sombra thing. I do think, I mean, in terms of, you mentioned the damage buff, they just reverted the changes, so, you know, now she doesn't have the headshot bonus damage, whatever. I do wish, I mean, I liked freezing people and shooting them, I'm not gonna lie. That's what, you know, you'd walled someone and froze them, and that was essentially the stun. They got rid of it, and they were like, oh, okay, yeah, we want to try to bring that back, but it's like, you would freeze someone, you don't know if they're frozen, you're finally like, okay, they're for sure frozen, you go for the right click, and they would just use whatever ability, because the second you stop shooting them, they're like, oh, they're going for the shot, all right, I'm out of here. So it's like, you just would never land the shot because everyone would leave, and then like, oh, let's hit it on Orisa, oh, you can't headshot her. And there was a lot of Orisa last season, obviously, and Bastion would just kill you. Kiriko would cleanse whoever you blizzard. Yep, there was a lot of rough, just, so yeah, she is an M1 bot. The wall got nerfed, but yeah, she does kind of play the tankier thing, I think. Where, I mean, she still does a ton of damage and gets her blizzard extremely fast, but yeah, you just kind of hold M1, all one person, go for it. Yeah. I'd like for there to be the freeze headshot, but it's just not possible without a stun, I don't think.
You sound sad and defeated, which is what it was when we were. Which season was it? We did the rank gauntlet, and you're kind of two heroes.
Oh,
Sombra and Mei were both so miserable, and you were just not having a good time. So sad to hear you say that. I have Kiriko moments. I have thoughts on Mei too, but I want to hear Kragie's first. Kragie, Mei.
Yeah, so the thing about Mei is that Mei is somewhat in the same category as Bastion. It's the more value, like the value that you get is based off how much fun can you suck out from the enemy tank. And the reason, so I don't think Mei is necessarily that good in ranked, but I do think she's very good in pro play, and that's because the support lineup in pro play right now, I think, is Baptiste and Alari. Because if they have a Kiriko, you cannot ultimate anybody because they'll just get Susu run out. If they have a Life Viewer, they'll get pulled out or piddle platformed. So I can definitely see why she's being played in pro play because of that, because you can counter the enemy tank and they don't really play those support characters that hard counters her. But in ranked, I don't really see her appeal there, because she does get countered a lot by like long range damage and all that kind of stuff. And because everything is a lot more chaotic in ranked, just, you know, it's hard to like stay with the team, wall someone off, and like focus them as a team.
Yeah, I think it's because it comes down. I think also the design. You know, in Overwatch 1, we had a lot of like 2 CP, so we had like one choke point, everyone comes through, wall. So it's like it made sense for Mei there. I also agree with Fareeha. I'm very unhappy with how they've treated Mei. Like, because I know Mei is like the demon character, right? Like everyone jokes about like, oh, well, she's the devil, we all hate her. But like I still enjoyed elements of Mei. I still think it added something to the game. Whereas in Overwatch 2, she feels super brainless, and I kind of feel like there's a theme of like a lot of the problematic characters become dumbed down to just be dumb in a different way, where they're just like, oh, I know you thought that was annoying, but here's a stupider version of it, right? It's like the Cassidy Magno Bang, I think it's a great example of like, you guys saw Flashbang was annoying. How about a heat-seeking missile that stops you from using anything? How about that? So it's like, and it clearly with Mei, they don't really have an idea of what they want, because they started with this, you know, 100 DPS a second version of the gun. Then they went back to something that was kind of a CC, but nobody liked it. The Mei players didn't like it. People didn't like playing against it. Now we're back to 100 damage per second. Does it solve the issue of Mei? Not really. And I also think there's like a fundamental problem, which is that they keep talking about like, I hate to, it's like easy rag, but it's like the pick rate thing, right? They're like, well, Mei's underperforming, so we're giving her this thing. And it's like, my guy, we don't need Mei to be performing at a certain level because she's a specific pick for specific situations. If all of a sudden she's performing well on, I don't know, like Circuit Royale, then we've got a problem. Like something's bad now if Mei is performing. So like, I think the problem is when we do these characters, we just either make them super oppressive in a niche, or they're like a very dumb but universal version, right? So again, Bastion is like the dumb universal version of like he's just good everywhere now and just shreds on everything himself. Or we get like this character is like a complete must pick on Lijiang Tower Control Center, and then like if in pro play, as Kragie's talking about, like in just Lijiang in general is like a great spot for you to be able to like 5-man wall something, kill something, or completely useless elsewhere. So I feel like it's okay for a character to have. It's okay for her to have a CC, I think, especially in Overwatch 2, if like where everyone's so spread out. But then like don't take the like nuance of the character out. I feel where I think at least I felt the system of freeze headshot was more fair than the wild spraying of M1 and hoping you kill this guy now for like just chasing them around and like it feels kind of lame.
Yeah.
So that's my thoughts. I don't know, Fitzy, if you want to chime in before we move on, because this is also your love.
I mean, yeah, their whole thing is they don't want stuns on DPS, so she's kind of just stuck.
Yeah, I mean, I think it feels bad both ways. Slowly getting beamed down with a 40% movement reduction, or getting frozen a headshot. I mean, both feels pretty bad.
It does, but I'd rather get headshot.
Now, so.
I'd rather get headshot.
Get headshot.
I'd rather be headshot by someone, right? I'd rather be headshot by someone than held M1.
Then to
personally.
slowly burn.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Well, then let's talk about your love then, Fareeha. So let's talk about Pharah, your namesake. So how do you feel about the bird?
We heard at the end of the Sombra talk with the devs that there would be a Pharah readjustment. And when I heard that, my ears peaked up, because I had just assumed that Pharah was just going to be left to the goddamn dogs. She was just left to the wolves, that they would never touch her because of this fear of messing with lower ranks and console. And I, from like 5 years ago, have been saying, like, please give this character, don't give her armor, don't give her shields, don't give her universal buffs where she's just gonna be an absolute menace. Don't buff her damage either. Give her more mobility that is centered on movement, because I think the issue with Pharah, and the thing that makes her so frustrating across the board, super frustrating in low ranks, super frustrating on console, and super frustrating even in like higher ranks, is that play style where she is at skybox and she's hovering there with the mercy. That is the most it's so oppressive. One, it's really annoying to deal with on an individual level, because hitscans can't, like with the fall off, with the mercy pocket, they can't do anything without a pocket of their own. And it's just this really unengaging, boring, kind of unreliable playstyle. And it's like that's the kind of playstyle that people rag on Pharah players for. Is like, you're super reliant on healing. You can't get consistent picks. You're kind of removed out of the fight, and it's just random. And I'm like, stop doing that. That's so boring. Stop it. I think the playstyle that should be way more incentivized and should be rewarded is my playstyle, where I treat her kind of like Doomfist. And if you play TF2, you'll know, like, you basically time your engages with what's going on. You like count the shots of the hit scans, and then you jump on in, and then you market garden them. So it's like it's a way more cerebral playstyle. It's way more replicatable, and it feels a lot more skill based. So like if I lose that, I'm like, they hit a shot on me while I was like zooming towards them, or like, oh, you know what? If I win that, it's because I timed that well and I gamed it well. And so if they gave her more horizontal mobility, or if they gave her like less self damage on rocket jumping and made that faster, or if they gave her a way to like earn a second concussive blast if she hits like a certain amount of directs in a row, right? Like that stuff doesn't make her that much more annoying to play against. And it also puts more agency in the player themselves. And it gets rid of some of the annoying skybox stuff.
I like that a lot. Glad you got it off your chest. Fitzy, do you want to just like, do you want to elaborate on what they said in the call with you about how they were planning to?
I was on Sombra. Like, that just
You weren't
was
you
like,
weren't
yeah,
paying
whatever.
attention. Okay.
Yeah.
Because from what I understand, it's something about essentially, or maybe Fareeha, you had a better take on it than like it was something about like basically they didn't want it to perma fly, and they wanted to give her more like horizontal. I think they called it feathering. Like they wanted to be able to like
Yep.
hop in and out a little bit more.
Yep.
Okay. Deku, is
And-
it? Go ahead, Fareeha.
And that kind of horizontal movement makes her a lot more interactive and less, yeah, just like less annoying, less of a giant static target that you can't kill. Yeah.
The buzzword. Deku, I was gonna say, as someone who often has to shoot up at the sky like a bat signal, how do you feel about potential Pharah changes, and how do you feel about Pharah right now?
Well, in NA, I haven't really played against many Pharahs lately. I've seen no Pharahs this season, actually. But, I don't know. She's really oppressive with the Mercy Pocket in certain maps where there's a lot of high, tall buildings or she can just hover over and, like, peek, shoot a rocket down a lane, and you can't do anything, even on Widow, because you have fall-off damage on Widow now, too. Or, like, after a certain range, you can't really get the one shot off, whatever. So, I think that aspect of Pharah is really, really annoying, and I hate playing against it, because most of the time, my healers won't go Mercy for me, or they won't go at least Zenyatta to, like, discord the Pharah, so it's really hard to play against her if she's playing from far away, and, Hitscan have the fall off, and you can't do anything, and her rockets are damage boosted and hitting you, and you're taking all that damage, and you just feel helpless, and your tank won't go diva sometimes, and all that mixed in is, like, it's really oppressive to play against in certain maps, but I mean, if your team is willing to cooperate, I feel like you can deal with it pretty well.
Yeah, I think the change is welcome in a way, because it serves the purpose of both the Pharah players and the Pharah haters, right? Because the Pharah players would say, well, I don't want to have to just rely on someone picking Mercy for my hero to be effective. And then the Pharah haters will be like, well, this shit is uncounterable. I know tank players, for example, and I felt this as well. Now I want to go to Kragie because he will understand my pain, I think perhaps better than the rest of you on the call, where it's just like, you play high elo EU, 50-50 chance someone's running Pharah Mercy, and especially if you're like playing tank, your options are I play diva and chase them around and hope something happens, or like nothing. And so, Kragie, how do you feel about Pharah in the moment and the change that they proposed?
Yeah, so I'm excited to see what the changes are. I'm always open for changes that makes characters like more interactive, and adds more dimension to them. The problem with Pharah right now is that she requires a Mercy Pocket to get value mostly. And that's a little bit of an issue. So I feel like every character should be viable to an extent, without needing a constant pocket. And yeah, you can't play Pharah without a Mercy Pocket. That's
I
impossible.
think that the people who have the playstyle where they need a Mercy are playing her wrong. I think, yeah, if you need a Mercy when you're Pharah, you're bad, you're a feeder, you're probably in the air all the time, and you're the problem.
Oh,
Strong words. Kragie?
that's tough. Well, I disagree, but yeah, I feel like if you go Echo, like Pharah will lose like vast majority of those duels. If you're Hitscan and you're always looking up, then you'll always be able to shoot. So you have to play ground Pharah then, and ground Pharah is just way worse than almost every other DPS character.
Ground Pharah, but occasional in the air. It's all about the timing, I think.
Yeah.
Interesting. Well, yeah, I mean, I've seen Fareeha's Pharah, and it's great. So I think, I certainly welcome a non-Skybox Pharah. I think everyone would. But you're right, Kragie, as well, in that like the Echo muddies the waters a little bit, especially because like the Echo counters the Pharah Mercy. So like you can kind of get the best of both worlds, where the Echo can go up, duel the Pharah, and then still do all the flying shit afterwards. So I think it's a good step in the right direction. I welcome the devs doing something about this. All right, let's move on then to Reaper. Often the forgotten, like I think at the start of Overwatch 2, there was a lot of Reaper discussion because there was this whole Reaper bubbled by Zarya meta. But since that's gone, I feel like we barely hear about Reaper. I barely see people play Reaper. I know when I've tried to play Reaper, it feels completely pointless because you're like, my character has this range and even when I get close, I'm not actually supposed, like, I don't even win half of these duels. So, like, what is the absolute point of playing this hero? So, Deku, let's go to you first. Any thoughts on Reaper?
I try to never think of Reaper actually. So often he surprises me, but I don't know. I don't really see him in a lot of my games lately. I saw him maybe like a season ago or two in a lot of my games, but right now, nothing. So I'm not sure if he's in a bad spot or all the Reaper players have gone into like hibernation or something. But I have no issues playing with or against a Reaper. I've had Reapers on my team pop off, and I've been able to like counter him pretty well as well. So I don't think he's bad necessarily. I think you just have to know how to play him well.
Interesting. So you're kind of happy with his place in Overwatch 2 at the moment, and generally?
Yeah, but I mean, I don't really play him, so.
Fair enough. Fitzy, how do you feel about the Reaper boy?
Caught me on.
I gotcha.
Torb exists, so Reaper is because Turret exists. And then it's like, oh, we've got a Zarya and a Torb and a Kiriko. Who's killing the turret? Yeah, so. But if they don't have a Torb and we have Reaper and you have Rush or whatever, I don't know. He's there. Sometimes he's fine. Sometimes not. Nothing much to say about him, I guess.
Are you fine with him being kind of like an out of place character? Like, again, on the kind of discussion of like not everyone needs to be meta or anything. Are you fine with him just kind of being a little bit niche and unloved?
I mean, there's sometimes I feel like when people, if there's like, oh, a person plays Reaper, it's like, oh, okay, he's scary, and then you go Pharah, and it's like, okay, well, yeah. I mean, I guess the only frustrating thing I have is when a Reaper, like, oh, okay, the other team has double Hitscan, and then we decide to pick Reaper, and then they pick Pharah, and then they stay on Reaper, and you're like, okay, they're doing this because of you, so you need to deal with that because they switched. Like, don't make this my problem. Yeah, because I mean, I don't see people picking Pharah to counter Sombra, and if they go Mei, then I go Sombra. So it's like, I don't know. I guess I get annoyed at the one tricks who are very stubborn. It's like, okay, your hero can get hard countered, just have a backup plan. But
Yeah.
and then they're usually just like, just ignore her and just kill him, and it's like, I mean, okay, sure, we can do that, but.
I love when people tell me that if I'm playing a game and someone in my chat's like, just ignore the Pharah, man. Just go kill the rest of our team. Oh, shit. I didn't think to do that, man. Thanks, dude. Let me just tell my... Guys, let's just kill the rest of them. Come on. What are we waiting on?
And it's not that you can't. Like, you can, but it's like, dude, this is the ladder. Like...
Yeah.
People are just still going to look at the Pharah and be like, there's a Pharah. The same thing with ball, I feel a little bit, when it's like, oh, we can just ignore the ball. Like, well, you can, but you just have to go fast and like run at them. But that never ends up happening, and then the ball's a problem.
Yeah, I think it's interesting what you mentioned about like just this hero just gets hard countered. Kragie, is that kind of like just a fundamental problem? Reaper just gets picked out the game too easily.
Yeah, I think the thing about Reaper is that I feel like him and Bastion kind of serves this purpose of being a tank burster. And right now Reaper's just getting overshadowed by the fact that Bastion can also do a lot of long range damage, which is where Reaper struggles a lot. So Bastion can stay with the team while also doing long range damage. Reaper kind of has to use a special move to get in the back line. Yeah. And so yeah, it's just kind of being overshadowed by Bastion right now. I can definitely see if they nerf Bastion, that Reaper is going to start being played a bit more if you want to start directly countering the tanks. But I think Reaper's pretty fine right now.
Interesting. Fareeha, are you kind of like well, they pick Reaper, I pick Pharah, so GG.
Yeah. You know that Christmas comic where Reaper is like hiding in the shadows, like stalking his old family in an alleyway? He's lore accurate right now. He is unloved. People are like, "Who's Reaper? Who's that guy? I thought he died 20 years ago in a war." It's like, yeah, he's kind of really outpaced by Bastion, as Kragie said, because I feel like flanker playstyles are are weak right now in a way where you have to kind of go in and then do a thing and then get out. Like go in, kill pylon, like and then go out, get a health pack, and then you have to go in and then bait out a Suzu, and then you get a health pack, and then it's just like you can't do that as well with Reaper. And it's just so much better to just be next to your Baptiste and have a buttload of healing pumped into you. It's just why play Reaper.
Yeah, I definitely think he suffers just in Overwatch 2 in particular. I played a lot of Reaper in Overwatch 1, and I think where he had power was that you could constantly cycle you just teleport in, pew 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 a little bit, wraith out, and by the time you're done wraithing, your teleport's almost back up, you get healed up, you teleport back in, your wraith's about to come up, you wraith, so it's like this cycle of kind of constantly creating an off angle, getting damage done was valuable, but now it just feels like there's the one shot potential, right? So it's like you can't even pew pew for too long, like especially if they have like a Hanzo, you might just die. Kiriko might just 2-tap you, or like just two things might shoot you at the same time and you just die. So there's not even much point in trying to do the whole I'm going to teleport in, pew pew, and shift away. On top of it, which seems like this is better picks to just do damage more all the time rather than having to do the whole I got to teleport, I got to run back. You just do damage, like as Kragie said, just pick Bastion and do damage all the time instead. So what's the point of picking Reaper? So there's like not even, there's one thing to have like a speciality that you're really good at, but he's not even a generalist either. So he's not generally good and he's not specially good. So he's kind of like, I wonder what his pick rate is. It might be very low, but at the same time, I feel like this is one where the metal rank players are probably very happy because he's always been a terror in the metal rank. So if he's shit, they probably don't, there's no rivers being cried for Reaper. So perhaps Fareeha's assessment is right. This is lore accurate. Nobody gives a shit about this guy. Thought he was dead already. Whatever. Sorry,
well, Battle
Reaper
ranks
mains.
also hate Bastion, right?
That's true. But they also play Bastion, I guess, so they maybe are happy that they can just play Bastion now.
There's a lot of that spite picking in metal ranks, I feel, of like, oh my god, I just lost 5 games to a Junkrat, or like, oh, I just died for the 10th time against this Diva bomb. I'm gonna start playing Diva, you know? There's a lot
It's
of
true. I feel like more people should do it because then they would realize what is the strengths or weaknesses they hear. Because sometimes people complain about the dumbest shit, and I'm like, do you have any idea how hard this thing is to do? Like some people sometimes be like, Tracer's fucking bullshit hero. Like, can't believe how strong it is. I'm like, have you tried playing this hero? Like, how fucking difficult it is? Like, can you just try for 1 minute? And I know Kragie will nod, and we'll get to Tracer in a moment. But next up, we discussed Sojourn, we discussed Soldier, we discussed Sombra. So alphabetically, the next up is Symmetra, another little oddball. But yeah, I mean, seems to come and go. Fitzy, how do you feel about Symmetra at the moment?
I think she has her maps. Yeah, I think she's in an okay spot. They made it so she can 2-shot. She doesn't seem oppressive. She might be a tank fun sucker sometimes, but that's usually like, oh, they have a shield, we have a shield, I can stand behind our shield and kill their shield. And then you're full charge so you can get through the healing, going back to support stuff. But yeah, I think she's in an okay spot. She can be niche on sometimes. She can be countered by things like Pharah and Echo and long range if her team doesn't have like a rush comp. So she fits sometimes. Yeah, I don't know. That's just she's okay.
Deku?
I kind of agree with Fitzy here. I don't really care to play against her too much. If she is an issue, I'll just swap to Pharah or something that can deal with her better. She is sometimes pretty annoying to play against in certain maps, obviously. She's really strong on, some of the indoor maps that are like really tight close quarters and she can just beam you and put turrets somewhere. But other than that, I don't think she's that crazy overpowered or anything. I think she's fine in a fine spot. Sim players that play Sim will get their value, so one way or another.
Fareeha?
I find myself agreeing. I don't think she's a problem. She's in a good place. Situational, but I do appreciate the kind of, I guess, the nuances that she kind of adds to the game. But I feel that less so now. It was more so a thing in 2CP that she could have big brain plays and you could have big brain plays to counter it. Like I still think about that moment that Fitzy had on Hanamura, where like there was 10 seconds left in the game, and not 10 seconds, but there was like a good amount of time left in the game. It was going to be last fight for them to try to contest. And if you remember Hanamura, the strat for second point is to like TP and just like rush the point with a sim shield. And so he like ran to their spawn and just EMP'd them before they could even get a teleporter over, and the time just ran out. And I remember having these interactions where I would sit in the spawn of the defenders, and I would just like, as the shield came in to divide the point, I would barrage it and instantly get rid of it because you do more damage. And that was like ways that you could counteract her stuff. And I feel like you do that less now, but it's still fun. It's like interesting ways to interact with the game that only she provides. So
yeah, I do appreciate how creative Symmetra players are. Like obviously there's
yeah,
the
you have
maps
to
like
be.
yeah, like there's obviously the Lijiang Tower Gardens where it's like everybody knows what to do. You run,
Ugh.
teleport into the window, like and there's like those very obvious moments, but there's a lot of like sometimes when you see like a sim on Circuit Royale, they're like wacky evil geniuses. They've like got some weird strat they've concocted. They know one spot you can teleport over to that nobody expects, and suddenly they appear. So I do appreciate how creative they are. But Kragie, like, yeah, how do you feel about Symmetra?
Yeah, Symmetra is actually in my hero pool now of countering
Oh.
enemy tank. Uh,
Devo.
she's pretty good against Orisa. So every time they have an Orisa, it's either May or Symmetra, and I like to play Symmetra a bit more. So but yeah, I like her diversity with all the things she's got. Like a lot of people were talking in the early days about the TP bomb. Like you put down 3 turrets and send the turret in the enemy backline and get a kill that way. A lot of people play like really sneaky with her by like placing a TP in the back and just constantly go back and forth, like go in the back lane, shoot a right click, go back again, and just constantly do that. Yeah, I think she's in a good spot right now. She's got her counters. There's a lot of characters that counters her, but she's really good against a few characters. So I think she's in a good spot.
Yeah, I think they did a good job actually, like kind of working her into a space where she's actually not super niche and kind of can be worked with, and it has enough flexibility, I think, to make it work, even if it's not optimal. Fitzy, did you have something you wanted to say?
Yeah, I will say the I think one of her most recent changes was the turrets doing less damage, but they provide wall hacks. I find that interesting. But also like I'm like thinking Numbani first point, you're on defense, you can like put it in a turret spot, put it in a flank spot, put it on so like your team can see where the enemy movement is. And also you can like do what?
Security
yeah. Because a lot of times like the 3 turrets aren't just gonna like kill someone instantly because it's less damage. I do like that you can like, okay, they have a Hanzo that's scary, I can't peek that. Okay, they got hit by the turret, I can throw a right click because they're not looking directly at me, and kind of like deter them from going. And you throw another turret, and but yeah, I like that they kind of went away from the super high damage and more of the intel type stuff. But that was it.
Yeah, it's actually something I don't think most of us notice. Like I don't ever think about like, fuck, she's wall hacking me right now because she's hitting me with her turret. But
I didn't even know.
fair to point out.
I didn't even know.
There you go. I think one thing that that I definitely get the sense of in the DPS podcast is that there's so many DPS that there's also a lot of times we never see some for like long periods of time. So like a lot of our opinions are not very like hardcore on the things where like, again, as a tank, you kind of see most of the tanks all the time, and supports are like, there's not that many, so you kind of see most of them at some point. So we're not necessarily like, we're not all up on the intricacy of Symmetra right now, but that's probably a better way for it to be. Like that way there's less people to be frustrated at rather than constantly whining about, let's say, a Kiriko or something. I don't know. All right, so second last hero then, Torbjorn, our builder man. I mean, he was very popular last season. He's gotten a nerf this season where let me just pull up what they nerfed. So the primary fire a little bit slower and his overhealth down to 75 from 100. How do we feel about Torb? I'll go to Kragie first. Kragie, Torb.
Yeah, I think I wouldn't mind if Torp's not meta. I think the turret is a little annoying. I know like the turret was before we got crossplay was worse on console than on PC because it was simply doing too much damage there because it had aimbot. Um, yeah, I mean like you can easily counter it by like killing it before engaging. And it's nice for like again like Bastion being like for like new players to like get into Overwatch. There's a new character. I think Torb is a well designed character. I don't think he should be meta at the highest rank though.
Yeah, because again, last season he was very popularly picked, and he kind of again created, I think, what a lot of people described as like a turret meta or like a builder meta, right? Where it's like you had to kill a lot of inanimate objects before you ever really got into the fight. And I wonder if you guys think that this nerf was gonna take away that power. Fareeha, what do you think? Like, do you think these nerfs are good, bad? They're gonna do what they intend to?
Oh, I think they're good. I've never been much of a Tor player. He ranges for me between like mildly annoying to I don't know, just like really oppressive. If you're on like Sombra Tracer, he kind of single-handedly shuts you down if you don't have a team pressing W with you. So I don't know. I'm not upset that he's not in the strongest spot anymore.
Fair. Deku.
I think his right click does a little bit too much damage sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I was playing
Shotgun?
yeah, his right click. I
Core
swear.
players are all like, never use that, never use that.
No. I swear to God. I was playing with Salt the other day, like yesterday, I think. And I died and I was spectating him, and all he did was press E, go in close into their backline and into like whoever was there. There was an Ashe, and I think there was a Kiriko, and just right clicked both of them and instantly killed them. And they didn't even know what happened to them. Because like I think Torb being so short, you just don't see him coming, and he just goes pop pop and blasts you with a shotgun. Like I saw him do that like 10 times, and I was like, how is this fair? I don't know. I think
I mean,
his right
I
click's a
mean
little OP.
if Saul can get value on anything other than Roadhog, it's gotta be broken.
It's true. Not a surprise he went for another shotgun character as well, just like all up in them.
Shotgun one shots.
Yeah, exactly. He's got his type. He's got a type. He's picked a Widowmaker player, so he's definitely got a one shot type.
Okay.
For Fitzy, how do you feel about Torb? I mean, once the bane of your life, is he still?
Yeah. I mean, you go to hack anybody that's like now that hacking a hero takes you out of stealth, the turret will target you. So, because before it was like if you hacked a hero, the turret wouldn't target you because you were in stealth. But, yeah. So you just have to kill the turret. But before you could like put a translocator down on a health pack, go in point blank range, kill the turret, translocate out, come back in. But now you can't do that because you can't just translocate away. So you have to like shoot it from afar and use your virus, and then like, yeah. Anyways, cooldown on it maybe too high, maybe range is too high, maybe I mean, I know they nerfed the damage, but yeah, I'm fine with him getting nerfed. Tanky DPS, you can't 1v1 him. You can't initiate the fight till you kill the turret. Your team like never kills the turret, so there's just a lot of, again, you have to go through a lot of stuff. And yeah, he kind of just turrets like, okay, I deterred your fight, and then you like it turns into this like, okay, I killed the turret, come back in. Okay, I forced Suzu. Okay, I come back in, turret's back. Okay, Suzu's back. Like it's just a loop of like you just can't
Would
do
you
anything.
say- Would you say he's annoying?
But again, it's like that free value to like it's not that the turret is like super strong, but like you can't kill the Torb himself fast enough, and you can't kill anything fast enough because of Suzu or whatever. So as much as Torb, it's still just like the support thing of like there's more cooldowns to burn through, and meanwhile he's just blasting your front line and getting molten core, and it's like, yeah. Anyways, so
Well, yeah. I mean, go ahead.
he's still 2 shots. He's tanky. He's like a tanky Hanzo. So
Yeah, he is definitely very oppressive against flank heroes. I think that's the like big annoying factor of it is that I think as well, like if we think about Dota that Fitzy and I enjoy, it's like ordinarily a hero like this would have like a bigger weakness. So like if the hero has like a summon, I'm thinking like a lone druid, right? Like the bear is strong, the guy is weak. So you like, you can kill the guy if you can't kill the bear. But with Torb, it's like the bear is strong and the fucking guy. Honestly, Torb is the bear. Torb is the bear, and then he's got a little thing that he summons is also strong. So it's like, it's hard because let's say we remove Suzu from the equation, you break the turret, you might still not kill the guy who overloads and pops an extra load of HP that's also armor. So I think I'm also of the train that I think I'd rather he just not be meta. It's fine if he wants, like, I don't mind them being like a hero that has like an auto easy entry level mechanic, but then he can't he can't be like better than Tracer, right? He can't just be like, well, he's better, you should just pick Torb instead of Tracer because Torb will not only shut down Tracer but also do more damage. So I don't think it's great. All right, then let's move on to our final hero then, Tracer. So this will round up the DPS roster. I'll go to Kragie first. Tracer extraordinaire. Kragie, how do you feel about Tracer right now?
Ooh, I'm right now. She's like a little iffy. It's like if the enemy comp is right, you can definitely play her. If they got certain characters, it's gonna be very hard. You can still make it. The thing that I like about Tracer is that she's so high skilled that you could play her in most scenarios if you're good enough. And right now, again, if they have certain characters, mainly on the support line, because that's where Tracer thrives, is being able to isolate those supports and duel them. Then if they have certain characters like Ilari, Kariko, Life Weaver, Baptiste, NS, and Lucio, Mercy, Moira, then it's a little bit hard, but
is that not all of them?
All of them.
Is that not literally all of them?
but nah, she's pretty fun right now, I'd say. I took a little break when Bastion was meta, and now I started playing her again. I'm finding her enjoyable now.
Okay, so you found joy again. Deku?
I think she's pretty okay now as well. Last season I was playing a lot of Bastion as well. But today I got to play her and she didn't feel too terrible. But yeah, if the enemy team goes Torb, it's a little bit like way harder and more unfun, but I think the game is good when Tracer is okay. Like not necessarily hard meta, but when she's played at least, more than she has been played last season, because last season I didn't see a single Tracer. I just saw Bastion. But yeah, I think she's good.
True. Is that what you saw, Fareeha? Not a lot of Tracer, mostly Bastion. And what about now?
I kind of really agree with what Deku said. I think Tracer is a very good barometer for the health of the game because she kind of determines, like, hey, is dive too strong and therefore other things can't be played? Or is she just completely pushed out because flankers just don't get any opportunities and it's just a reset Bastion? So I've been seeing more Tracers in my games, and yeah, I play her less nowadays because it just feels like the way that you get chip damage and then you run to a health pack and then you get chipped with a little bit of damage and then you have to run to a health pack. It's just, yeah. It's probably a skill issue in me just thriving on copium, but I'm like, Tracer's so hard. She's so much harder than she ever was before.
No, I feel like completely. I did like 7 days on Tracer recently, and I was like, my God, dude. The number of things that one-shot me as well. Like, not just the chip damage, but like the number of things that one-shot you. It's like, Ashe one-shots you, Hanzo one-shots you, Sojourn rails you. Like, this other thing will, like, the Torb can one-shot you, right? It's like, I'm just like, bro, I blink wrong and I'm dead. Like, I look at someone wrong and I'm dead. Like, Kiriko is also like, Kiriko, the thingy into headshot, right? The kunai into punch. Head, let's say, you're dead. I was just like, my goodness. Like, I wandered into the wrong neighborhood and I'm dead, like. So I definitely feel sympathy for how difficult it is to play Tracer. I think she's an amazing character. I think she always has been. I know some people kind of have a moral vendetta against Tracer, where it's like, no, fuck this poster child character who just kind of like has always been too strong, and the bias that the devs have. But I genuinely think that like I don't ever feel mad losing to a Tracer. I don't ever feel mad when there's a Tracer in the game, because always lots of things you can do. So up the Tracer in my book. Maybe a British bias, I don't know, but I think she should be good. And when she, I don't, I'm not saying hard meta. I'm not saying everyone should lock Tracer, but I think if she's one of the highest value DPS, and that makes sense in my mind because she's like the hardest DPS, so I'm okay with it. Fitzy.
Tracer. I didn't really play last season very much, but this season, if we're talking the Sombra, I mean, I think she's in a good spot. I don't know. I don't really play a lot of Tracer. I'm seeing her plenty, or like enough. Obviously, the supports that it frustrates Sombra also frustrate Tracer, so I don't need her in my hero pool.
Right.
But I will say the Sombra Tracer matchup feels better now. Before it was like you could hack her and then she would just leave. Like it was like 1.5 seconds, you're not gonna kill her. But now it's like if you hack her, she's almost, if anybody else looks at her at all, she's dead because you just like hack virus. I mean, you have to land the virus too, but it's a little easier to hack her. 1.5 seconds hopefully isn't like oppressive. Again, I haven't played the Tracer against it, but it's not that long. But yeah, you can kill her a lot easier now. Which before it was like, oh, Sombra's supposed to kind of be good against mobility heroes, and then she would just hack her and she would just walk away. And then making one shot. So I've always been like, it's almost been like oh, they have Tracer, let me go Mei instead of Sombra, because just kind of silly because you're like, oh, anyways. But team composition dependent, being able to have the threat of a one shot is always there. But yeah, I think she, as long as she can get some value, and there's always like, she's pulse bomb, oh, we gotta be ready for the pulse bomb, okay. And then a lot on my Lifeweaver journey was like, as long as I don't get it with a pulse bomb, it's fine. I could save whoever. And of course you have that one where you pull them in, you pulse both yourselves, but that's all react, not on your, you had to like pull them and they got pulsed as you pulled them timing wise. But yeah, and chat always likes when I dodge a pulse bomb with translocator. It's not that hard. It's a little bit harder now because you have to wait the 0.25 seconds, but it still is like, oh, you went for me and I had my cooldown. But and Tracer is also able to chase Sombra easier now as well. So it kind of goes both ways, where it's like, if the enemy team has one mobility hero, it's like, yeah, I can kind of go backline. But if they have two, it's not worth it. Because Tracer can kind of shut you down. If you're like, oh, I'm in the back line, I went for the Zen, I left. And then Tracer like triple blinks and is on top of you. And yeah, you can't do anything for 4 seconds. And she should win that a lot of times. Yeah, so it goes both ways. And like, she's good against, Sombra's good against Tracer, but Tracer's also better at kind of controlling an area against Sombra.
Fair. I like it. I think Kragie was nodding at your pulse, for example, because his own journey on Lifeweaver, he's clearly pulsed himself a few too many times as well with the grip. I saw a fair
it's out
few
of your control though. Like, it's if you pull them and then they get pulsed, you can't do anything. But
I saw a fair few in Boger's video as well. Quite a few occasions where he managed to pulse bomb himself. But all right, then that concludes the DPS roster. So we're just gonna take it now to final thoughts. Thank you guys for being with me for so long, and it's so many DPS to get through, but we've done it. We've gone to the entire roster, so we're just concluding thoughts now. Just want you to tell me kind of one general thing, or it could be specific, that you kind of want the developers to think about going forwards, specifically with regards to the DPS category. Like, so you're like, oh, hey, think about this thing, guys, or like, if it's nerf supports, then so be it. But just what is like a general thing that you think will make it better for DPS all around, both for yourself and people playing against them? Let's go with Deku first. Deku, you've been brewing. What do you think you kind of want to see for DPS going forwards?
So I think DPS is an okay spot. Like you can pretty much play a lot of DPS characters right now. Bastion's still good, whatever, but I think it still all the issues lead back to support. No matter what, it's just that's the root of the problem. if you want everything to feel smoother and the game to feel better, you have to start there and then tune everything else to that level. I don't necessarily think there's any crazy changes needed to DPS. Maybe the passive could be something they could look at because it's not that good in my opinion. But other than that, yeah, nerf supports.
All right, I thought it might be the case, but yeah, nerf supports is Deku's take. Let's go to Fitzy next. Fitzy, what is your
Hero bands.
hero bands? I like it. All right, drops the mic. Hero bands makes everything better. Fareeha,
Let us be fast little goblins running around the back line. Give us movement buffs. Whether that be in the shape of a passive or hero specific things to help certain flankers that have been left behind in the dust, like Pharah, right, who hasn't really seen any changes, and like Echo gets added and all these Hitscan characters get added. Let us have more movement.
more movement. I think Kragie, you were in favor of more movement earlier.
Yeah, I was. Yeah, I'm more in favor of going away from this concept of the best way, at least in my opinion, the best way to consistently get value on DPS now is by putting all your resources into killing the one tank on the enemy team. Take that away and start distributing it out more so characters gets value by the plays they make and how good you are at playing those characters. So that could be taking 1v1s against supports, taking 1v1s against other DPS, instead of just log a character that makes it as miserable for the other tank as possible.
Right. I think that's totally fair. I think obviously, I think I said at the end of the support podcast that the way support feels, I think every role should feel that way, which is that whenever I play support, I feel like A, I'm having fun, but B, it's like I feel like the game is in my control, right? I'm like, I could have done this, I could have done that, I could have changed the outcome of the game if I lose, right? And if I win, I'm like, all right, I played well. Yeah, I just think the autonomy factor. I feel like I'm in control of what's happened, and even if I lose, it's still something that I could have discernibly done differently. I think often, whenever I play tank and DPS, I come away feeling like I don't know. My team didn't do the thing that they should have done, and beyond that, I don't know what I'm supposed to do. Right? Like I can only do these things on my character. So I think I would echo the same for DPS here. It would be nice, I think, if DPS players felt more like my role does what it's supposed to do. Right? I'm able to take 1v1s. I'm able to kill things. I'm able to like turn the game for my team. But within reason, it wasn't just I picked Bastion and I held M1, right? Within reason, within a fair balance of like what is a give and take. So yeah, I look forward to it, hopefully. And the other thing is that we didn't really talk about it, but it's not really a DPS hero coming for a while. So that is unfortunate. You know, we're going to get a tank next again. And you guys particularly upset about the lack of DPS hero? Do you think it's fair with the number you have?
I think it's fair. It's fine.
I'm good.
What was the last DPS we got?
Sojourn?
Sojourn?
Sojourn, yeah.
When is the next one? Is it
Shrug.
Is it after
I don't know.
tank?
They haven't
Next year, yeah.
confirmed.
Somewhere
We
next
would
year.
assume it's after this next
Because it
tank.
was support, or no, it was what?
So
Support,
you got
tank.
Sojourn, tank, Junk Queen and Ramatra, right?
Mhm.
'Cause it was three because we got
Well, yeah.
we got
Kiriko was in there
DPS
too.
support or DPS tank support tank
Right.
support Lifeweaver Iliari
Yeah, Life of
Yeah.
Iliari. And
Now
now
we're gonna
Tank?
go back
Now
to
it's
tank.
Mama
tank.
Hong. I mean tank.
Mama Hong, yeah.
How did his jetpack cat?
Yeah, I
Uh,
think. I think the thing is that a lot of the DPS characters that we have now was from the early days. I
Yeah.
think content drought for any role is bad. I would like to see them getting, like, of course, like tank and supports needs more heroes, but it would have been nice if they put in like if they did like tank support DPS, tank support DPS instead of just DPS tank support. But
right.
Well,
I
all
think
the
it's
supports are DPS, so I mean,
that is true.
It's true.
Yeah, we
This
did
is
get a
true.
new DPS.
That is
Yeah.
true.
It's actually true. Yeah, I think that's fair. I think also like something that's a bit different as well might be nice because I think Sojourn, while fun, was, you know, kind of like unmemorable in many ways. You know, it's kind of like it's a bunch of things we already do. So it'd be cool if they have a new hero lined up. So anyways, that's enough of your guys' time. Thank you so much for joining me, Fareeha, Deku, Kragie, and Fitzy. I hope you guys enjoyed the call. I'm sure chat found this very informative, and we've now rounded up each of the individual podcasts for the roles. So we'll do a wider one at some point where we get a representative from each role, and then they can really go at it and probably just gang up on the support player. But for now, thank you so much, guys, for your time. Please show them all some love. I appreciate it so much. If you ever need anything from me, let me know. But for now, anything else you want to say before we let you get going?
Nerf supports.
Nerf supports.
Hero bands.
they've got their slogans. All right. Thank you so much, guys. Have a great rest of your day. Peace out.
All right. See ya.
Thank you. Bye-bye.